Hello and welcome back to my channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. Let's begin. Antioch gradually woke up in a new world, becoming aware of his surroundings at the age of 3. He recognized his new mother and father, and it seemed he had an older brother as well, given the similarities between the boy nearby and the older man. They were in a cozy room, and a few strange creatures were fidgeting around them. Antioch stared at the creatures, ignoring his parents, who pouted at his lack of attention. The creatures, seemingly nervous under his gaze, approached him at his father's cue and sniffed him. Startled, Antioch watched as one of the jackal-like beings turned to his father and communicated something he couldn't understand. Feeling a wave of sadness wash over him, Antioch thought about what Death had said: he would be reunited with his comrades eventually, but they wouldn't remember him. This thought triggered a sudden bout of wailing, causing his parents and the creatures to scramble in an attempt to calm him down. One of the creatures began to sing softly, and soon little Antioch fell asleep, marking the start of his new life. Flashback to a few years prior, Cypress and Delia Ketchum were young when they discovered Delia was pregnant with their first child. Despite the surprise, they welcomed Redbud Ketchum into their lives. As he grew, he insisted on being called Red, and the name stuck. Red brought joy to his parents, even during tough times. He became close friends with Green Oak, the professor's grandson, and they shared a deep love for Pokemon. When Green announced he was becoming a big brother, Red was initially happy, but as Gary was born, he felt jealousy as Green spent more time with his new sibling. After a couple of months of watching Green babysit, Red stomped home, demanding his parents give him a baby sibling too. His parents were taken aback but eventually decided to have another child. A year later, Red became a proud big brother to the adorable Ashwinder Ketchum, or Ash for short. Ash was a quiet baby, only crying when he needed something, unlike little Gary. Red felt a sense of pride as he observed how even their Pokemon were enchanted by Ash. One day, however, Ash suddenly began to cry, leaving everyone puzzled. In the midst of their confusion, Cypress's Chansey started to sing, calming Ash down and lulling him to sleep. Cypress sighed in relief, thanking Chansey. Delia wondered aloud why Ash had cried, concerned he might be unwell. Red grew anxious, suggesting they call a doctor, but Cypress reassured him that Ash seemed fine and that they should wait until morning to decide. Lucario, Cypress's Pokemon, chimed in, explaining that Ash had been sad before he started crying. Cypress pondered this, considering the possibility of a strange dream. Red asked for clarification, and Cypress shared the conversation he had with Lucario, which eased their worries. Red felt grateful for Lucario and Chansey, who had become part of their family despite Cypress's reluctance to catch more Pokemon after losing his original team on a difficult mission. Delia, while not a trainer, had a close bond with Mr. Mime, who had decided to follow her around and help at the inn. Red admired the relationship his parents had with their Pokemon and envisioned a similar connection with his own in the future. After a while, Red perked up with an idea. He decided to call Green and arrange a playdate for Ash and Gary the following weekend, missing the time spent with his friend. Delia encouraged him, believing that having friends would bring happiness to Ash. Cypress cooed at the sight of Ash sleeping peacefully, and as he headed to the nursery with Chansey in tow, Delia began preparing dinner for the family. Red smiled at his family as he called Green to chat about a date to get together and hang out. It had been 2 weeks since Antioch Peverell woke up in this world, now known as Ashwinder Ketchum, or Ash for short. He didn't mind the new name, in fact, he found it fascinating. The ash tree was a powerful magic conduit, and his previous wand had been made of ash wood. He was captivated by this new world, especially the colorful creatures he had learned about, like Lucario, Chansey, and Mr. Mime, as well as the technology they used. He realized his family were non-magicals, yet these amazing creatures, stronger than them, followed their lead. This intrigued him, and he looked forward to the future. He loved his new parents, who he could tell were hardworking and honest. His mother was a strong woman who managed both the inn and the family shop, with Mr. Mime helping her out. His father was a ranger of the region, and while nothing dangerous happened most of the time, he knew that could change at any moment. Lucario and Chansey enjoyed playing with him and his brother whenever they had time off from training and work. Then there was his older brother Red, whom Ash adored. In his previous life as Antioch, he had been the one looking out for his younger siblings, so having someone care for him in the same way was a cherished experience. The two siblings were often seen spending time together whenever Red returned from his classes. Red would share stories about his day, and Ash listened attentively. Red beamed whenever he had Ash's attention, feeling that his little brother was smart and understood him. It delighted him when Ash's first word was his name, even if it was a bit garbled. Their parents had pouted at first but soon became confident that Ash would say more words soon. However, Ash's next words were Lucario and Chansey, followed by Mr. Mime, which made their parents pout again. 3 days ago, Red had mentioned they would be spending the weekend with his best friend Green and his younger brother Gary, who was only a bit older than Ash. Ash was excited and nervous, looking forward to having someone his age around, even if Gary was younger. Red wondered if Ash would say his next words soon, as it had only been a week since he started speaking. He thought about the pouty faces their parents had made when Ash first spoke and wished he could remember those early years. Just as they were about to leave, their mom called from the kitchen. "Red, Ash, I'm sending Mr. Mime with some of your favorite grilled cheese sandwiches to the professor's lab. Mr. Mime will return after dropping you both off. Now, have you both taken everything you need?" Red replied, "Yes, Mama. Don't worry about us. Let's go, Mr. Mime." Mr. Mime nodded, assuring Delia that he would make sure they reached the lab safely. Delia wished them to have fun as they set off. Red pushed the baby trolley Ash sat in as they walked to the professor's lab. Ash looked around with bright eyes, taking in the bustling environment filled with people and Pokemon, particularly a bird-like Pokemon that seemed to be in high numbers. "Here we are, Ash. Thanks for coming with us, Mr. Mime," Red said as they arrived. Mr. Mime handed over the basket of sandwiches and drinks to Red before leaving. Red rang the bell, and they heard shuffling before the door was opened by Green's older sibling, Leaf. Leaf brightened at the sight of them. "Oh Red. You're here. Little Ash, you look adorable as ever. Are those your mom's special grilled cheese sandwiches? I love those. Let me take them to the kitchen while you and little Ash get comfortable." Ash blinked at Leaf's energetic demeanor as Red pushed the trolley inside the house, which felt warm and welcoming. Ash smiled and babbled a few words, making Red coo at his adorableness. They soon saw Green coming down the stairs with Gary, who had learned to walk without help, though Green still fretted over him. "Red, you made it. Hello little Ash." Green greeted. "Sure did." Leaf took the sandwiches Mom made to the kitchen. "We can have them later for lunch," Red replied. Ash smiled back at Green, and Gary approached, babbling excitedly. "Sandwiches!" Gary exclaimed. Green laughed, ruffling his brother's hair. "Yes, Gary, sandwiches. You love them, right? You can have them at lunch, okay?" Gary turned to Ash, smiling. "Ash, sandwiches. We're having sandwiches." Ash couldn't help but laugh. "Gary, sandwich. Sandwich." Red snickered at their playful banter as he and Green settled their younger siblings in the play area set up for them while they completed their group assignment. They discussed their plans for the future and what their next assignment would be when Leaf called out to them. She asked Green and Red to grab Ash and Gary and come down for lunch, mentioning that their grandfather often forgot to eat. Red chuckled at Daisy's complaints as he carried Ash, while Green took Gary's hand, and they all headed to the kitchen together. Red and Green still had 3 years to decide whether they would embark on a Pokemon journey. Red felt a mix of excitement and apprehension about the future. He wanted to become a champion but was not looking forward to being away from Ash. A few months had passed since Antioch, now known as Ash, woke up in this new world. It was not so bad, considering everything. Lucario was an incredible companion, and Chansey was gentle and kind. They made an unusual but harmonious team. Ash cherished his loving family, especially his big brother. His new friends were enjoyable to be around, although he wondered if Green saw him as a friend too. He thought to himself that his big brother's friend was his friend as well, and he found Gary adorable. However, he wished he could know for sure, but death had forbidden it. Determined to access his magic, Ash remembered using meditation in the past. He decided to meditate for an hour each night while everyone slept, hoping to connect with his magic. The first night was challenging as he struggled to clear his mind, distracted by thoughts of Pokemon, Gary, and his family. By the second night, he managed to calm himself, reminding himself that it would take time to regain his strength. This newfound focus allowed him to meditate successfully for the rest of the week, and soon he began to sense the magic within him. 2 weeks into his meditation practice, Lucario noticed a surge of energy from Ash. It was a Sunday, a day reserved for family time, and as a being attuned to aura, Lucario could see the tendrils of energy emanating from the youngest Ketchum. He was initially surprised but then filled with excitement. Meanwhile, Ash was taking a nap and unaware of the attention he was attracting. Lucario instructed Chansey to watch over Ash while he went to inform his partner about this development. Chansey was puzzled and asked if Lucario had indeed seen the strange energy. Lucario confirmed and hurried to the kitchen, where Cypress was teaching Red how to make poke food while Delia prepared lunch. It was a heartwarming scene, and Lucario felt proud to be part of this family. Cypress noticed Lucario's excitement and asked if something was wrong. Lucario grinned and revealed that he had discovered something amazing about Ash. Cypress's curiosity piqued, and he asked if Ash had said a new word or taken his first steps. Delia joined them, eager to hear the news. Red explained that Lucario was excited about Ash, and Lucario confirmed that while Ash hadn't started walking yet, he believed Ash possessed aura abilities. Cypress was astonished by this revelation. He had heard of aura users and had even worked with one in the past, which was how he had met Lucario when he was still a Riolu. Lucario had chosen to follow Cypress, recognizing him as an honorable warrior. Cypress had been hesitant to involve Pokemon in his work due to the risks, but Lucario had insisted on learning from him. Their bond had grown stronger over time, and now, with the possibility of an aura user in the family, Cypress felt a sense of hope and excitement for the future. Red and Delia exchanged wide-eyed glances, intrigued by the implications of this newfound ability in their family. They had heard stories and rumors about aura users, and Red's excitement was palpable. Aura users were rare and mysterious, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. That's so cool. But isn't Ash too young? Most aura users I've heard about were adults, Red expressed, a hint of concern in his voice. Lucario nodded, reassuring him, I know this may be hard to believe, but trust me. Ash has aura, it's very weak right now, but as he grows, his strength will grow too. Cypress added, Ah. We have time then. Don't worry, Red, your brother has to grow up first before he can start using aura. Delia chimed in the meantime, let's celebrate. I'll go get Ash, it's time for food. Red cheered, though Cypress felt a mix of pride and worry about what this meant for Ash's future. It could be good or bad, but he decided to focus on the present. They had time before it could be noticed by others. It had been a year since Ash woke up and a few months since he started meditating. Initially, he felt only a few wisps of magic, but recently he began to sense it more strongly. However, he still couldn't summon it outside of himself, which was becoming frustrating. A former wizard and knight unable to use magic. How embarrassing. Ash thought, feeling a pout forming on his face. His family would coo over him whenever he sulked, but he was too caught up in his thoughts to notice. Cypress would give him worried looks, while Red spent time with him whenever school allowed. Delia seemed to be smiling more than usual, as if she held a secret. Lucario had taken on most of the babysitting duties, which made Chansey a bit miffed, but she accepted it. I'm overthinking this. I should start meditating soon, or I'll be exhausted in the morning, Ash decided. He sat down, relaxed, and closed his eyes. He focused on his breathing and pulse before reaching for his magic, entering his core. Inside, his core resembled a vast grassland with small trees, a mountain to his right and an ocean to his left. He had nurtured this inner world for months, and it had flourished with magic. If only he could figure out how to use it outside. As he contemplated this, he heard a familiar chuckle behind him. Turning around, he saw the being who had given him a second chance at life. "Hello, my little warrior," Death rumbled. "Hello, Death." "This is a surprise," Ash replied, grinning. "Indeed it is," Death said, pausing before continuing. "How are you adjusting to your new life, young one?" "It's different than I expected, but I wouldn't change it. I love my family, both the humans and Pokemon," Ash answered, his smile widening. Death was pleased. "You are satisfied?" "Yes, thank you, Death. For giving me this chance. I truly appreciate it." "This world is beautiful and amazing," Ash said, moving closer to hug the being. Death gently ran skeletal fingers through Ash's dark hair, content to see him happy. They sat in comfortable silence, enjoying the scenery together. "I have a boon for you, child," Death finally said. "A boon? Really? But you've given me so much already. What else is there?" Ash asked, intrigued. "You're having trouble accessing your magic, are you not?" Death inquired. "Don't remind me." Ash pouted. "It is why I have decided to give you a boon. This world is filled with energy, auras, psychics, healers, and warriors. Magic is not exactly practiced here," Death explained. "But I can feel my magic. How can this world not have magic?" Ash protested, confusion evident on his face. "You can feel it because you had it before and know how to access it, despite the limitations," Death clarified. "So that's why I can't summon it." Ash frowned. Death nodded. "This boon will allow you to use your magic, but there will be limits due to your young body. As you grow older and stronger, your magic will grow with you. You won't need a wand to perform spells, but you will need to train. I'll leave that up to you." Ash brightened. "Really? What about potions, wards, charms, and the other branches of magic? Potions are part of this world, so don't worry. They may be different, but I'm sure you can handle them. The other branches exist as well, you just have to figure out how to access them," Death replied. "Thank you, truly. Thank you," Ash exclaimed, hugging Death again. Death rumbled in contentment as they stayed with Ash until he fell asleep, before leaving to visit the ghost cities in this world. Meanwhile, Lucario sensed something amiss and rushed to Ash's room, followed quietly by Ash's dad, who had heard Lucario's hurried footsteps. Whatever had spooked Lucario's partner had worried him, although he didn't see anything out of place. Cypress spoke quietly, expressing his belief that whatever it was gone. Lucario looked around suspiciously, agreeing to stay the night just in case. Cypress noticed that Lucario seemed shaken and asked if he was all right. Lucario reassured him that he would be fine, suspecting it could have been a false alarm. Cypress offered comfort with a gentle pat on his shoulder, encouraging him to try to get some sleep. Meanwhile, Death observed the protective nature of Lucario's family and felt satisfied. He knew they could leave the little one in their hands. One of the things Death appreciated about this world was the places where departed souls gathered, making it easier for them to collect souls. Jengar called for Death, indicating it was time to move on, while Misdreavus confirmed they were ready. Banette requested that they take care of their trainer. The ghost-type Pokemon understood their existence as corporeal beings but never revealed themselves to the living, often helping souls transition from the world of the living. Death found it intriguing to think about how these creatures would react to a child marked by them. A month had passed since Death's visit, and Lucario had become very protective of Ash. Initially, this behavior confused both Ash and Red, but they eventually grew accustomed to it. Red asked their father about it, but even Cypress couldn't provide an explanation. Lucario was aware that he was worrying his pack, but his instincts had gone haywire and were taking time to calm down. In a flashback, Lucario overheard a conversation between Red and Cypress. Red expressed concern about Lucario's protectiveness, wondering if something had happened to cause it. Cypress explained that Lucario had freaked out one night, ready for battle, but he didn't know why. Red became alarmed, questioning if it was a burglar or kidnapper. Cypress admitted he didn't know but acknowledged that Lucario's behavior was a result of fear. Red suggested calling Green, considering the professor's ranch was nearby and could have been the target. Lucario, however, trusted his instincts, believing Ash was the actual target, despite wishing he was wrong. Now, Ash planned to explore the forest surrounding Pallet Town. He agreed to let Lucario guide him, promising to stay on the outskirts. Though his parents were initially against it, they relented after Ash assured them he would stay close to Lucario. As Ash prepared for the trip, Lucario watched him with amusement and calmness. He recognized Ash's unique power, which he initially thought was aura but realized was more than that. Recently, Lucario discovered that Ash could understand him, which had surprised everyone during dinner. Lucario reminded Ash not to forget the extra bandages, while Ash explained he wanted to collect interesting plants and roots from the forest. Ash's affectionate title for Lucario brought him joy. After finishing his packing, Ash took Lucario's paw, and they headed downstairs. Red had already left for school, and Cypress had gone to work with Chansey and a newly rescued Arcanine, who had become a trusted member of their pack after Ash befriended him. Delia greeted them from the kitchen, reminding Ash to stay close to Lucario, who was the reason they were allowed to go. Lucario nodded in agreement, and Ash reassured his mother that he would stay near Lucario and promised to return by evening. Delia waved them goodbye, reflecting on how quickly they were growing up. The duo walked toward the east side of town, passing the professor's ranch and some Pokémon living there. As they neared the edge of the forest, Ash heard someone calling his name from behind. It was Gary, who caught up to Ash as he walked past their property. Breathing heavily, Gary said, "Ash, I finally caught up to you. What are you doing going in that direction? Grandpa says it's dangerous for us to go there without an adult or a Pokémon." Ash smiled at the concern in his friend's voice. "Hi Gary. Don't worry, I'm not alone. I'm going there with Uncle Lucario. He's in charge today." Gary glanced at the tall aura Pokémon beside Ash and then back at him. "That's your dad's Lucario, right? I still don't think it's a good idea. What if something happens and separates you two?" Ash pouted at that, while Lucario let out an amused laugh. Watching the two interact was always a delight, and he didn't mind if young Gary joined them. Lucario suggested, "Why don't you invite him to come with us, Cub? It'll be better with 3 instead of 2, and Delia packed us enough lunch, so sharing won't be a problem." Ash's face brightened. "Gary, do you want to come with us?" Gary looked surprised. "What? Yeah. Come with us, it'll be fun. I was thinking about having a picnic with Lucario, but now I can share food with you." After a moment of thought, Gary agreed. "Okay. Just let me tell Leaf that I'm spending the day with you. Maybe I can grab some extra food too. You better wait for me here, though." Ash promised and waited with Lucario as Gary went back to inform his sister. When Gary returned, he was carrying a picnic basket, and Ash noticed he looked a little pink. Leaf had said something to him that made him blush. Ash was curious but didn't want to be rude, so he stayed where he was. Leaf saw Ash and Lucario and waved, mouthing, "Have fun," before going back inside. Gary approached Ash, still a bit flushed. Sisters can be so nosy. They should really watch what they say. Ash giggled at Gary's grumbling and took his hand. "Ready to go, Gary?" Gary glanced at their joined hands, turning pink again. "Yeah, sure. Lead the way, Lucario, we'll follow." Lucario smirked at Gary's reaction before turning to lead the way into the forest. He had overheard what Leaf had told Gary and found it amusing. The child's crush on his cub was truly adorable, and whether it would grow into something more or fade away, only time would tell. Lucario led Gary and Ash through the dense forest. Ash looked around with excitement, while Gary appeared more cautious. Eventually, Lucario guided them to a clearing with a clear spring running through it and decided it would be a good spot to rest. "Cub, this place is perfect for us to rest and have lunch together," Lucario said. Ash beamed. "Yeah. I agree." Gary looked confused. "Huh? Agree to what, Ash?" "Uncle Lucario says we can use this place to have lunch and relax." Gary's eyes widened. "You understood him? That's so cool. And yeah, it is a pretty neat place." Ash smiled. "Lucario says thanks for the compliment." As Gary walked closer to the stream, he exclaimed, "The clearing is pretty wide, and the water is very clear. Ah! I think I see a Magikarp." Ash hurried over to where Gary was standing. "Really? Where?" Gary pointed to a reddish blob in the water with fins. "There, do you see it?" Ash grinned. "Yeah, I do. You have a sharp eye, Gary." Gary blushed. "Thanks, Ash. Look, a Goldeen." Lucario, who was clearing space to lay out the blanket along with their bags and basket, smiled at the two boys. They got along well and never caused him trouble. He watched them excitedly point out the water Pokémon in the stream. Ash gasped. "Oh! I almost forgot. I brought a camera." "One sec, Gary. Let me grab it so we can take pictures together." Gary smiled. "Okay. Hey Ash, can we take pictures of Pokémon too? That would be really cool." Ash grinned. "Sure, we can, but the quality might not be great." Gary waved it off. "It's just for us, right? It'll be fine then." Ash nodded and took out the camera while Lucario leaned back against the bark of a tree to relax. Ash thought Lucario looked cool and decided to take a picture. Lucario didn't mind and felt amused by it. Gary grinned. "I want a copy of every photo, Ash. Also, next time, I'm buying us film rolls." "Sure, no problem. Do you want to come with us next time?" Ash asked. Gary blushed. "Yeah. This is kind of fun, you know. Gramps and Sis always talk about how dangerous the forest is. They aren't wrong, but getting to come here is actually pretty cool." Ash looked at Lucario with shining eyes. "Can we? Please?" Lucario snorted in amusement. "I don't see why not, provided it doesn't disturb your studies, which will start soon." Ash blinked. "Oh yeah. We'll be starting school soon. Don't worry, Uncle Luke, we won't let our visits disturb our studies." Gary groaned, realizing this meant he would have to work hard or they would never be allowed to go out. Lucario nodded in agreement and closed his eyes, letting his aura spread to keep an eye on the two. Ash, feeling Lucario's aura against him, playfully nudged back with his own magic. Lucario nudged back, feeling pleased, which made Ash smile. Gary looked at Ash. "Ashy? What was that?" "I saw a blue light coming from Lucario, which I'm guessing is the aura Gramps told me about. But I also saw a light coming from you, Ash. It was transparent and had no color, but it was definitely there." Ash blushed and rubbed his neck. "Ah. It's something I've been able to do for a while now. I can't do much with it, just some small things. I also promised Dad I wouldn't tell anyone, though." Gary's eyes sparkled. "Can you show me?" "I won't tell anyone, I promise. It can be a secret between us." Ash looked at Lucario, who nodded back. "Okay. I can show you, but I tell you right now, it's nothing compared to what Uncle Luke can do with his aura." Ash leaned back slightly, cupping his hands as he focused on his magic core. He guided his magic to his hand, creating a small ball of light. Gary's face lit up with delight, both at witnessing Ash's abilities and at the fact that Ash was willing to share his knowledge. After creating one ball, Ash made another of a different color, then another, until he had all 7 colors of the rainbow. Lucario watched the two as they played with the light ball Ash had created. Their laughter attracted some of the other forest Pokemon, 3 Rattatas, 4 Pidgeys, 2 Oddish, 5 Magikarp, 1 Goldeen, and 6 Poliwag. Wait, 5 Poliwags, the last one was definitely not a Poliwag. Lucario grinned, hiding his amusement. Looks like my sweet cub attracted the attention of Lord Mew. As long as they don't mess with my cub, I won't attack. Gary looked at Ash, excitement evident in his voice. This is so cool. Too bad I can't tell the others. A promise kept is as good as gold, Gramps always said. Lucario tapped Ash's shoulder. It's time for lunch, cub. Very impressive control, I know many would struggle with what you just did. Ash blushed at the praise. Thank you, Uncle Luke. It's time for lunch already? I didn't realize it at all. I haven't even collected any berry plants or flower plants yet. Gary puffed out his chest and then laughed sheepishly. Don't worry, Ashy, I'll help you look for them after lunch, but you'll have to tell me what I'm searching for first. There are many plants in this forest. Ash hugged Gary. Thank you, Gary, I would love that very much. Now let's eat. Ash let go and sat down. Mom sent some of her delicious curry, steamed rice, and 6 bottles of water. There's some Caesar salad too, and the poke food that Red has been learning to make with Dad. Oh man, I can't wait. Gary replied, cool, I love your mom's curry, it's really good. Leaf sent us apple and nut pie for dessert, and I got us some extra soft drinks too. Gramps sent some poke food last night, which I grabbed for Lucario and the other Pokemon we might meet here. Ash and Gary took out feeding plates and poured the poke food into them. Ash gave a plate to Lucario while spreading the rest on the ground for the wild Pokemon, who, in Gary's opinion, were curiously docile near Ash. He shrugged, figuring it was probably because of Lucario, and sat down to eat when Ash served him some food. Gary thought to himself that it would be really nice if Ash cooked food for him, but promptly shook the thought off. Ash asked, "You okay, Gary?" Gary replied, "Huh. Yeah, just thinking." Ash inquired, "About what?" Gary gestured at the wild Pokemon. Gramps would kill to see this. Wait till I tell him. He's not going to believe me. Ash snickered. We should remember to take photos as proof then. Gary giggled as they enjoyed lunch with Lucario and the wild Pokemon. After lunch, they took photos with the wild Pokemon and searched for the plants Ash wanted. He aimed to make potions again and wanted to see what ingredients were readily available. He spotted some familiar medicinal plants from his time as a wizard: king's foil, blue grass, snapdragon, jangi plant, and edible hibiscus. They even collected berries and fruits that Lucario said could be grown from the seeds, including tomato berries, pecha berries, apples, and oranges. The wild Pokemon helped them by picking some really ripe berries and fruits. Lucario said, "They want to thank you for the meal." Ash responded, "Oh. Thank you for helping us." Gary added, "Yeah, we really appreciate it." By late afternoon, they started their trek back to the small town. Gary hummed a happy tune, walking hand in hand with Ash. He felt really happy today. Usually, he would get bored at home reading the books Gramps gave him. But today had been fun, and he had learned a lot. They saw their big brothers waiting for them. Once Red spotted Ash, he waved, and Ash smiled brightly, dragging Gary along as he ran to tell Red all about their adventure. Red laughed. "Slow down, Ash, and tell me slowly." Green suggested, "Actually, why don't you guys come in for some tea and snacks? You can tell us all about your adventures then." Ash and Gary grinned and followed their siblings inside for evening snacks. They shared everything that had happened, except for the part where Ash had shown Gary his abilities, Ash decided to tell Red later. The two Ketchums and Lucario left after promising Gary another playdate. A week had passed since the trip to the forest. A week since Ash had told his family about Gary knowing about his abilities. His dad was visibly worried, but Ash assured him that Gary had promised not to tell anyone. Gary had never broken a promise before, and Ash trusted him. In a flashback, Ash had said to his family, "I told Gary about what I can do." Cypress frowned. "What? Is that wise?" Delia looked worried. "Oh honey. I know that sometimes you want to share things with friends, but... is this safe?" Ash reassured them, "Mom, Dad, don't worry, Gary promised not to tell anyone. I trust him." Red looked at Ash sadly. "Baby bro. It's not that we don't trust Gary. We are worried about his safety." Ash became troubled. "What do you mean?" Cypress explained, "What your brother means, kiddo, is that there are many people out there who covet your abilities. They will use any method they can to get to you, even hurt Gary if they realize he knew about it." Ash's eyes widened. "Ah. I didn't think about that. I'll need to come up with a way to protect him." Red reassured him, "Don't worry, little bro. We'll figure this out. Hey, I kind of wanted to tell Green and the rest of the family about this." Cypress interrupted, "Red." Red insisted, "No, Dad, hear me out. Okay. So, I'll be starting my journey in a few years soon. Aside from Green, my scores in practical are among the highest. Both Green and I will start at the earliest around 10 years. Ash was confident that he and Gary would start their day early. He knew that the three of them couldn't always be with Ash, but having trusted friends to look out for him would make things easier. Lucario agreed, suggesting that they should consider trusting those individuals, especially since Elder Oak had many reliable people. Cypress thought it was a good idea to have a family gathering to explain everything. Red appreciated the suggestion, expressing his desire not to keep secrets from Green, his best friend. Delia, overhearing this, began planning a family dinner for both families, aiming for a month later to ensure everyone could attend. Currently, Ash was getting ready for another playdate with Gary. This time, Cypress wanted Lucario and Chansey to accompany him, leaving Arcanine to watch over Ash. The large Pokémon considered Ash his cub and was determined to protect him, honoring the memory of his previous trainer. Arcanine nudged Ash's cheek, asking if he was ready. Ash responded enthusiastically, and they headed to the kitchen to grab the lunch basket and Arcanine's strap bag, which had a note from Delia. She informed Ash that she had to rush to the store but had prepared everything they would need for their outing. Ash smiled as he secured the bag on Arcanine before stepping outside into the sunny day. They noticed Pidgeys and Spearows flying overhead as they made their way to Oak's residence. Upon arriving, Professor Oak greeted them and confirmed that Gary was ready. Ash watched as the professor went inside to call for him. Moments later, Gary rushed out and tackled Ash in a friendly hug, causing Arcanine to hold on to Ash's collar to prevent them from falling. After exchanging greetings, Gary revealed that he had brought his own supplies for collecting samples. The two friends, along with Arcanine, ventured into the forest. Arcanine led them to a different area, a vast open field, and took a position on a high ledge, signaling that he was watching over them. Ash pointed out various plants to Gary, sharing his knowledge about their uses. Gary was amazed by Ash's insights and expressed eagerness to learn more. They spent a couple of hours collecting samples before settling down near Arcanine to review their findings. As they prepared for lunch, wild Pokémon began to gather around them. Suddenly, Arcanine growled at one of the Oddish that had approached, causing the boys to jump. To their surprise, the Oddish transformed into a giggling peach-colored Pokémon. Ash looked on with curiosity while Gary was in shock. The Pokémon introduced itself as Mew, playfully acknowledging their suspicion. Gary excitedly pointed his camera at Mew, eager to capture the moment. Ash was fascinated to learn that Mew was a legendary Pokémon, believed to be the ancestor of all Pokémon. Ash complimented Mew, which made the little Pokemon blush and fly over to snuggle with him. Arcanine, though slightly annoyed, decided to tolerate Mew as long as it didn't cause trouble. Ash and Gary took turns petting Mew, who purred happily. Arcanine then reminded them that it was time for lunch. Ash agreed, inviting Gary and Mew to join him. Mew was thrilled to discover that Ash could understand him, and the three of them sat down to enjoy their meal, joined by Arcanine and a few curious wild Pokemon. As they ate, Gary reflected on how special Ash was and wondered if they would one day embark on a journey together. Ash smiled at Gary as they enjoyed their lunch on a beautiful day. After finishing their meal, they spent time playing with the Pokemon in the field, with Arcanine watching over them. Two adorable Meowth had joined them, drawn by the smell of food. Gary laughed at their cute expressions before sharing some poke food with them. Ash giggled as he crafted colorful ball for everyone to play with, and Gary noticed that they seemed different today. "Hey Ash, they look a bit different," Gary remarked, holding one of the ball. Ash beamed, "The more I practice making them, the better they become. They're brighter and last longer too." Gary pointed at Mew, who was observing the spheres. "Is it like a Pokemon move?" Because Mew can do the same, but only in one color. Mew looked thoughtfully at the sphere he had created, considering Ash's colorful creations. "I never thought about different colors before. Guess I will be training for a while," he mused. Piku, playing with his own red and black sphere, looked up at Mew. "You're going to train? Aren't you a legendary Pokemon?" Mew giggled, "Just because I'm legendary doesn't mean I can't learn new things." Piku blushed at the gentle reminder. "I just thought. You know." Mew smiled, "Life is full of surprises and new experiences. You never know when you might learn something new, like today." Piku grinned, "Yeah, I always thought humans would be scary, but these two aren't so bad." Mew chuckled, "You should worry more about Papa Arcanine." Ash examined his orb. "It takes a lot of focus and power to create, but once it's made, it lasts a while. You can even use it at night." Gary sighed, "I haven't told anyone yet, but I think my brother suspects something." "I want to tell him, Ash." "Don't worry, Gary. We'll tell him together. Mom and Dad are planning a dinner with both our families. We'll tell everyone then," Ash reassured. Gary felt relieved. "That's great. I don't think I can keep this secret for long, maybe a few weeks, but even then, I can't guarantee it." Ash laughed and hugged his friend. "You won't have to wait long. By the end of the month, both our families will know." Gary hugged back. "So in 2.5 weeks. I can wait till then." He picked up his camera and snapped a picture of the Pokemon, especially Mew, who was chatting with Piku. "Until then, I'll distract them with pictures of Mew." Ash giggled, "You're going to give your grandpa a heart attack." Gary puffed, "He totally deserves it, especially after the way he woke me up today." Ash took out his own camera and captured images of the wild Pokemon, knowing his brother would love looking at them. As they played, they wandered closer to the trees, and Ash wanted to collect some moss. "Why moss?" Gary asked. "Certain types of moss, like lichen, can be eaten, while sphagnum can be used for dressing wounds. Tea made from polar star moss can help with seasickness," Ash explained. Gary looked at the moss on the tree thoughtfully. "I never thought moss could be useful." Ash grinned, "Some moss can be used for other things too. Spanish moss can be used for outdoor beds when camping. I've read it's really soft." Gary laughed, "Wait till Green hears that. He won't believe me and will grumble about how his shirt will turn green instead." Ash pointed out a patch of lichen moss. "Look, Gary. That's lichen moss. We must be lucky today." Gary examined it. "That white-greenish moss is lichen. Doesn't look like much, does it? Can Pokemon eat it?" Arcanine, who had been following them, nodded. "Wild bug and grass types do, and some normal types as well." Ash took out a bottle to collect some samples. Arcanine says they do. Do you want to collect some? Gary grabbed his own bottle. Yeah, but I guess I'll have to read about how to grow moss. I remember there was a book on moss farming in the library. As they collected samples, Gary stumbled but was caught by Ash. They looked down to see an oval brownish item on the grass. Is that an egg? Ash asked. Gary inspected it. Yeah, and luckily it's not cracked. I wonder who it belongs to. Let's ask the Pokemon, maybe they know. They approached the wild Pokemon, who shook their heads when asked if the egg belonged to any of them. Piku gestured to Ash, and Arcanine translated. The little one says it was left here one day, and no one knows where it came from, Arcanine explained. Oh. That's sad. Thanks for the explanation, Piku, Ash said. Piku replied, welcome. Ash shared their predicament with Gary, who was hesitant to leave the egg behind. Mew suggested they take the egg with them, and Ash relayed this to Gary, who was surprised. Are you sure? Is this okay? Gary asked. The wild Pokemon looked at each other and nodded. Ash smiled at Gary, knowing he would take good care of the egg when it hatched. I will take good care of this little one, I promise, Gary said with determination. Arcanine stretched. It's getting late. Time to go, cubs. You little ones need to head home too. Ash smiled at Arcanine and turned to Gary. Yeah, let's go home. I think everyone will be happy to help you with the little one, Gary said with a laugh. Everyone except Gramps, who'll try to search for Mew now. Sorry, Mew. Mew giggled, shaking his head as if to say he didn't mind. He had enjoyed the previous encounters with those who searched for him. Ash chuckled, knowing Mew would have fun playing pranks on Elder Oak. Arcanine led the two boys back to the clearing, where they cleaned and packed everything up. After saying goodbye to the Pokemon who had become friends with them, the three of them headed back home. Ash glanced at Gary, who was gently holding the poke egg, and couldn't help but blush, thinking he would make a good father when he grew up. They dropped Gary off at his house after explaining to his parents about the egg. Green and Red, who had come to pick Ash up, laughed and joked that Gary was already a trainer. Ash left after promising Gary he would come the next day to help care for the egg, which made Leaf squeal in delight when Green told her about it over a video call. Green wondered what Gary would reveal during dinner when Gramps came home, knowing the look in Gary's eyes meant he was looking forward to some mischief. What none of them noticed was the little tail of a Piku following Ash home. Delia, Mr. Mime, and Chansey had been busy in the kitchen, preparing for a dinner gathering with the Oaks. The kitchen was filled with the delightful smells of cooking. Ash and Red helped chop vegetables and meat while their mom prepared the dishes. Now, Ash was spending time with his big brother and the Piku that had followed him home from their last visit to the forest. Mom, we're back. I picked Ash up from Green's place too, Red called out. Delia peeked from the kitchen door, welcome back, dears. Oh my. Did you pick up a stray? Ash looked confused. What do you mean, Mama? Delia pointed at the little yellow head peeking out from behind the fence. Arcanine huffed and went to grab the Piku by the back of its collar. Ash and Red were surprised, they hadn't expected a Pokemon to follow them home, especially a Piku, which were known for being shy around humans. Arcanine dropped the Piku near them. Piku rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Hi there. Arcanine chuckled, you know they cannot understand you, right? Piku pointed at Ash. He understands you just fine, though. Arcanine replied, because we know each other well, little cub. We are pack. And he is my cub, they both are. Piku sighed, that sounds really nice. Ash, who only heard Arcanine's part of the conversation, felt very happy. Red looked at Ash in confusion, and Ash explained what Arcanine had said. Red and Delia beamed with happiness, remembering how untrusting Arcanine had been when he first followed Cypress home. He had come a long way from being a hurt Pokemon to being part of their family, or as Arcanine loved to call them, pack. They welcomed the little Piku home, and Cypress and Lucario laughed when they learned about what had happened. The Ketchum family had grown slightly bigger with Piku joining them, and if Red didn't know any better, he would say Ash had found his starter Pokemon. Red mentioned this to their mom, and she agreed, sharing her own experience of meeting Mr. Mime as her starter instead of the usual 3. After dinner, Ash shared stories of their adventure and showed pictures taken in the forest. Cypress was shocked to see Mew, and he and Delia exchanged worried glances but smiled in front of their 2 boys. Red, excited, asked, Ash, would you mind if I kept one of Mew's photos? Ash smiled back, not at all. I can get more photos later. Red grinned, great. I'll get you more camera rolls in return. He couldn't wait to share the news with Green, imagining Professor Oak's reaction to Gary's adventure. Meanwhile, at the Oak house around dessert time, Gary excitedly showed his brother the photos. Green, indulging his brother, looked shocked. Holy Arceus, Gary. Is this Mew? Professor Oak, who had been enjoying a glass of wine, nearly spilled it. What? Gary, feeling smug, innocently asked, what is it, Gramps? The professor took the photo, bewildered. Gary, where exactly did you take these photos? Gary replied, while playing with Ash, of course. I was with him the whole day. Blue Oak, curious, asked, what's wrong, Dad? The professor rubbed his face, mumbling, all these years, so many trainers have spent their lives searching for Mew. And here you are, Gary, taking his pictures so casually. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Rosalind Oak, Blue's wife, laughed. No need to be dramatic, father. This just shows how clever our youngest is. Isn't that right, Blue? Blue nodded, yes, but we might need to increase security. Gary beamed at his mom's praise, knowing his Gramps would be flabbergasted when he showed the photos. Green smirked knowingly at his little brother. As the night went on, filled with questions from the professor and discussions, Blue informed them of the dinner invite from Cypress. Gary perked up, recalling that Ash had mentioned it earlier that day. They called it a night when Gary went to check on the poke egg, wishing his family good night. Now, the 2 families were about to gather for dinner, and Ash wondered how the conversation would go, remembering that in his last life, people often struggled to accept those who were different. That was saying it lightly in the kindest words. He was honestly worried about it. He had gone over to the Oaks during the following 2 weeks before the dinner to help Gary take care of the egg. The 2 of them had gotten together and read through every book in the library on Pokemon egg care. Professor Oak had been a big help too. He had been proud of both Ash and Gary for finding a future Pokemon partner already. Piku had puffed up with pride while Gary smiled, and a week after taking care of the egg, it hatched in the evening. Gary and Ash were spending time with their older brothers, and all of them had been surprised when the eggs started cracking until the professor calmed them down. They welcomed the newest addition, who turned out to be a baby Eevee, very happily. As Ash thought about the past few days, he heard the bell ring and went to answer it. I'll get it. Ash called out. Delia had just finished giving the final touch to the main course. Red, while your brother is getting the door, please call your dad. Red walked to his dad's office after agreeing. Sure, Mom. Dad, it's time for dinner. Cypress smiled, looking up from his paperwork. Coming, son. Ash and Piku, who had joined him when he opened the door, chirped together, welcome, Gary, Green, Leaf. You made it. Welcome, Uncle Blue, Aunt Rosie, and Professor Oak. Looking good today. Gary, letting Eevee go inside to play with Piku, said, we're here. Green laughed, ruffling Ash's hair. Hey, kiddo. He chuckled at Ash's pout before joining Red on the couch. Red smiled at him, handing over one of the gaming consoles to start a game. They could squeeze in a game before dinner. Leaf grinned. I took time off from my journey, so yeah, I'm here. No way I'm missing out on my ship. Gary looked at his sister with an annoyed expression. You are so weird, sis. Professor Oak laughed. Well, it is a dinner invite. Rosalind and Blue smiled warmly at Ash, hugging him before joining the other parents in the house. Professor Oak joined them after greetings were done. The two fathers and the professor spoke about recent happenings while Leaf joined the two mothers to chat about the cutest pairs they loved to ship. They soon moved to the dining room, where a feast was spread out for them. Rosalind's eyes sparkled. Oh Delia, you have outdone yourself. This looks fantastic. Delia smiled. Why, thank you, Rosie. Have a seat, everyone. They all sat down together, and Cypress said a prayer of gratitude to Arceus before everyone started to eat the delicious dinner. Ash smiled as he and Gary sat together and ate. His Piku and Gary's Eevee got along well with each other. Red and Green were lost in their own world, while Leaf grinned watching them. Ash wondered how the talk would go after dinner was over and hoped it wouldn't change anything between them. After dinner, Gary and Ash sat together, playing with the Pokémon. Piku and Eevee were delighted to have the attention of their favorite humans. Leaf, Red, and Green got up to help take the used dishes to the kitchen while Rosalind joined Delia at the counter to help her carry the dessert. Leah, these look divine. You truly are very gifted in the kitchen, Rosalind said. Delia giggled, delighted at the praise from her longtime friend. Why, thank you, Rose. You have such a sweet mouth. I swear, if you were a guy instead of a girl, I would have married you instead. Rosalind laughed. Our poor husbands would have been completely lost then. Delia snickered. Oh, I'm sure they would have survived somehow. Rosalind looked at her best and oldest friend. They had met in high school, and in the beginning, they didn't even talk to each other. Then there was that one incident where Rosalind was cornered by 3 other students, and Delia had saved her using her quick wit. Flashback, Rosalind was minding her own business in Castello High, a prestigious school in the Hoenn region for the talented and gifted. She was cornered by 2 girls and a guy who she believed was one of their boyfriends. She wasn't sure what their names were, and she didn't really care. Yes, do you need something? Rosalind asked. You middle-class brats don't have a place in this school, one girl huffed. Yeah. Go back to your poor public school in Kanto, the other girl agreed. Which guy did you sleep with to enter here, huh? The boy sneered. Rosalind, annoyed by their incessant babbling, was about to confront them when she heard a shout from around the corner. Over here, Professor. They are smoking here. I saw them. Drat, it's that goody two-shoes again. Let's get out of here, one girl said. You better watch out, the other girl warned. The 3 of them ran off, leaving Rosalind behind. Curious, she went to see what was going on and was surprised to find it was one of her classmates, Delia Rubin. Are you alright? They didn't do anything, right? Delia asked in concern. I'm fine. Weren't you with a teacher here? Rosalind replied. Nope. I lied, and it worked. They ran off like the cowards they are, Delia said, sticking out her tongue. Rosalind snorted, and after that incident, they started to meet up for study groups with another guy, Devon. They became a high-ranking trio, always at the top of their class. The 3 of them remained best friends through university, going their own paths but staying in contact. Flashback end. Delia cleared the table and ushered Rosalind to place the desserts on it before going to get the children. The men who had gone out for a smoke and talk returned to the room. Take your pick, children. There is enough for everyone, Delia said. Gary and Ash looked delighted at the sweets. Ash took a cherry-flavored pastry, while Gary went for a green apple one. Green chose the coffee flavor, Red enjoyed chocolate, and Leaf went for the pastry with sunflower seeds on it. Once the kids had their pick, the adults went for what was left, which were mostly fruit pastries. Cypress cleared his throat and addressed the group, Blue, Rosalind, and Samuel, there's something we want to discuss with you, something that concerns Ash. Blue set his glass down, sigh, whatever it is, you can trust us, right? Cypress offered a small smile, knowing Blue sensed his unease but waiting for him to bring it up first. Leaf looked between the adults, her curiosity evident, while Green exchanged a glance with Red. Red smiled at Green, silently promising they would talk later. Rosalind chimed in, Delia, does this have anything to do with you being worried and distracted a few months ago? Delia sighed, yes, it does. But we weren't sure how to explain it then, and even now, we are still trying to understand it. Sam nodded in understanding, like Blue said, whatever it is, you can trust us. Cypress replied, we know, Professor. It's just that we're having difficulty explaining it right now. How about we show you instead? He motioned for Ash, who had finished his treat, to come over. Ash climbed into Cypress's lap, and Delia giggled as she wiped her son's face. Cypress smiled at Ash, why don't you show them what you can do? We can trust them to keep a secret. Ash looked at his family and then at his best friend, Gary, who smiled encouragingly. Taking a deep breath, he cupped his hands and summoned his magic, creating colorful orbs that floated around him. The professor, Uncle Blue, and Aunt Rosie gasped, while Leaf stood up in surprise. Leaf exclaimed, Ash is an aura user. Oh wow! I didn't see this coming. But why are there so many colors? I thought aura was light blue. Green looked at her, confused. What do you mean, sis? What's an aura user? Sam, channeling his inner Professor Oak, explained, aura users are people born with the ability to manipulate the aura within them. They are highly respected and sought after in many regions. Green nodded, okay, but why were you surprised by the colors? Is that unusual? Cypress motioned for Ash to join Gary, who grinned. Actually, it is. Just a few weeks after Ash started doing this, he began to communicate with Pokemon. We expected it with Rio, since he's an aura Pokemon, but we didn't anticipate Ash being able to talk to others. Professor Oak looked concerned. Oh my. Yes, that is quite different. Could this be why Ash attracted Mew? Cypress frowned, worried. That thought hadn't crossed my mind. This changes everything. Ash turned to him, sensing his worry. Daddy? Are you okay? Cypress smiled, trying to reassure him. I'm fine, son, just adult things. Why don't you go play with Gary and your Pokemon? Ash smiled back and chirped, okay, Dad. Try not to worry so much, okay? Let's go play in my room, Gary. Gary nodded, sensing the seriousness in the room. Yeah, let's go. I brought copies of last year's tournament battles in my bag. We can watch them. Red took Green's hand. Mom, Green and I will be in my room too. Leaf replied, sure. Have fun, you too. Green rolled her eyes, thinking about her sister's penchant for romance novels. Red led Green to his room, eager to share everything he had kept from her. He never liked hiding things from his best friend. Green listened to Red's concerns and helped him devise a plan for their future journeys. Once the 4 kids and their Pokemon had left, Rosalind spoke up. Well, that was certainly unexpected, but I'm glad you told us. I'll be honest, I don't know what this means or how things will turn out, but whatever happens, Delia, I'm here for you. You've always supported me when I needed it, and I want to do the same for you. Delia smiled at her friend. Thank you, Rose. I've been so worried about what could happen if the wrong person found out. But we can't keep it hidden forever. Ash is gifted in ways I never expected. Professor Oak placed a hand on Cypress's shoulder. If you're open to it, I could observe young Ash and see what he is capable of. What can he do right now? Cypress thought for a moment. Well, Ash has shown a few abilities that can be spontaneous or specific. He can shape aura in different colors, which I've never heard of before. Perhaps it's an aura secret. After spending time with a Pokemon, he can understand their language. I can't explain how it works, but it seems connected to his aura. The plants in our garden grow healthier when Ash cares for them. He can calm wild Pokemon just by being present. Ash has a knack for collecting pretty and sometimes rare stones. He has an Everstone, a Sunstone, and a Firestone. He gifted Green a Firestone, Gary a Waterstone, and Red a Moonstone for their birthdays. He just started creating shields. That's all I've noticed so far, but I believe there will be more. Leaf stared wide-eyed. Wow! I thought you brought those stones. Then the dragon scale Ash gave me was from him? Red nodded. That was Ash. Leaf exclaimed, that's really cool. Blue looked concerned. It certainly is, sweetheart. He sounds like an aura user and also a psychic. Rosalind turned to Delia. You were right to worry about him. These gifts would be highly sought after by any criminal organization, especially those obsessed with legendary Pokemon. Cypress and Delia nodded in agreement, grateful to have their friends by their side. They would do anything for their children, and having trustworthy people to rely on made things much easier. During a discussion about their observations, the professor concluded that Ash was too young to harness any powerful abilities and decided to reach out to some trusted friends for advice. He reassured the Ketchums that his friends, particularly Blaine and Agatha, were good at keeping secrets and might help Ash discover his potential in the future. Overall, the dinner was a success, and the Ketchums felt supported in facing what lay ahead. 2 months had passed since that informative dinner with the Oaks. During this time, the Oaks invited the Ketchums over for dinner as well. Ash and Gary were thrilled, especially when Grandpa Oak allowed them to play with the nocturnal Pokemon on the ranch. The Pokemon were excited to interact with the boys, particularly the ghost types. Lucario and Blue's Blastoise kept a watchful eye on the group, ensuring that the Pokemon didn't get too carried away. Although the boys were safe, the Guardians preferred not to search for them in the dark. Unbeknownst to the boys, their fathers and the resident professor were observing them, noting how the ghost-type Pokemon were particularly drawn to Ash. During the dinner, Professor Oak chuckled, remarking on how surprising it was that Blue's usually grumpy Gengar was enjoying the company of the boys. Blue, watching the scene thoughtfully, expressed his surprise as well. Cypress, concerned, asked if there was something wrong with Gengar. Professor Oak explained that Gengar was known for being picky and short-tempered, rarely engaging with people, especially since evolving from Haunter. He was pleasantly surprised to see Gengar playing with Ash and Gary, as he usually preferred to keep to himself. Cypress acknowledged this, recalling that Gengar was one of Blue's first Pokemon. Blue nodded proudly, explaining that Gengar was his strongest Pokemon, known for its stubbornness and determination in battles. Leaf then entered the room, excitedly announcing that dinner was ready and that she would fetch Red and Green. The dinner was a delightful occasion, with Ash particularly enjoying the pot roast and a special dessert. Delia and Rosalind moved to the couch to chat with Leaf about a boy she liked, much to her embarrassment, while Gary and Green found amusement in her reaction. Grandpa Oak cleared his throat, capturing the attention of Ash and Gary. He shared that he would be meeting an old friend next month and invited them to join him. The boys were surprised, as the professor typically kept his private life separate from them. He reassured them that they would have time to decide and promised that the experience would be both fun and educational. Ash and Gary nodded, intrigued but unsure. Now, Ash was training Piku to master some moves. Piku had successfully learned Tail Whip, Agility, and Charm, which worked well on female Pokemon. They were now attempting to learn Nasty Plot and Nuzzle. Ash and Gary discovered that Piku had 2 egg moves, Charge and Wish. Meanwhile, Gary and Eevee took a break from training to explore a book about Eevee's various evolutions. Eevee had mastered several moves, including Growl and Quick Attack, and also had 2 egg moves, Detect and Curse. Try again, Piku. Nuzzle. Ash encouraged. After several attempts, Piku finally succeeded in using Nuzzle on Arcanine, who was observing their training. Arcanine acknowledged Piku's progress with a rumble of approval. Stronger than yesterday, little one, Arcanine said. Piku thanked Arcanine, and Ash picked him up, celebrating their success. That was awesome, Piku. Let's take a break. Mom made a delicious lunch for us. Gary complimented them as they joined him and Eevee on a picnic mat. That was pretty impressive. Ash laughed, thanks, Gary. Piku has been working really hard. As they settled down, Piku began to glow unexpectedly. Ash was startled, while Gary looked on in shock. Arcanine watched with anticipation, knowing that evolution was near. Moments later, the glow faded, revealing a larger, yellow Pokémon. Hi. How do I look? Like the surprise? Pikachu chirped. Ash was overjoyed. Piku. You evolved. Into a Pikachu. Oh my Mew. Gary, recovering from his surprise, grinned. Congratulations. That was amazing. This is our first evolution too. Ash hugged Pikachu before setting him down. I can't believe you evolved. We should visit your grandpa later, Gary, to make sure everything went smoothly. Sure. But for now, let's eat before the food gets cold, Gary replied. Eevee chimed in, congratulations. That was incredible. Pikachu nuzzled Eevee's cheek, thanking him for the support. Have you decided on what you want to evolve into? Eevee purred. Honestly, Gary and I are a bit torn between Umbreon and Espeon. But I want to evolve into something that has special meaning. Don't get me wrong, they are both amazing. What do you think, Arca? Arcanine replied, whatever you choose to evolve into, do so with pride. It is still you after all. Ash and Gary had stayed on the outskirts of the forest to train and collect items after lunch. Their meal consisted of a bento with fried rice, stuffed omelette, steamed carrots and broccoli, potato chips, fried sausage, bacon, and a sliced tomato and cucumber salad. Ash noticed that Pikachu didn't seem to enjoy the pecha berry-flavored poke food as much as before. Instead, he eyed the tomatoes in the bento with longing. Ash made a mental note for the future. After lunch, they cleaned up and went to the same field where they had first met Piku to collect samples. Ash gathered a few bulbs of lilies and tulips to grow, while Gary collected a stem of a wild orange-colored hibiscus and some violet snapdragon. Just like last time, they played with the wild Pokémon, and this time, the pink Mew greeted them with two of his siblings, one silver-furred and another ebony-furred. These are my siblings. I hope you don't mind. I just couldn't help but tell them about the fun we had, Mew said. Arcanine huffed, you legendaries will do anything you want, huh? However, he allowed them to play together, provided they didn't try anything funny with his cubs. The two new Mews had been skeptical at first but grew curious about Ash, especially the fascinating power that seemed to glow inside him. A proper look at Gary revealed that he had potential as well. Ash and Gary welcomed the two to play with them before they had to return home. The ebony-colored Mew, who watched them leave, spoke up, you know, when he goes on a journey, the other legendaries will probably want to keep him. The silver Mew smirked, I agree. Shall we keep him to ourselves until then? Between the three of us, it shouldn't be hard to hide him for a while. Mew giggled, why not? Red felt a shiver go down his spine. Who? Something wrong? Green asked. My little brother's senses are tingling, Red replied. Green eyed him. You feel it too, huh? We should check on them, Red said. Green nodded. Better safe than sorry. Professor Oak greeted his old friend, Professor Blaine, at the Cinnabar Resort port. It had been a while since they had seen each other. They were old friends and rivals, but their rivalry had faded as they focused on their research. Blaine was curious when he received the call from his longtime friend, sensing it was a personal matter. He had come to meet him at the port, known for rarely leaving his gym or lab unless it was important. My old friend, it has been a while, Professor Oak grinned. We just talked last month during the researchers' annual meet, Blaine rolled his eyes. Like I said, too long since I have bothered you, Professor Oak laughed. He looked over at Ash and Gary, who had come with him to visit Blaine at the volcanic resort. As he suspected, they were busy playing with the Pokémon belonging to trainers traveling there for the lava badge. The trainers looked flustered as their Pokémon seemed reluctant to let go of the two boys. Luke, Axel, and Lisa were the names of the 3 young trainers they had met when boarding the ship. They were trying to get their Pokémon to behave so they could disembark. Golduck, Graveler. Come on, guys. Let's go, Luke exclaimed. Axel tried to pull his Pokémon off Gary. Scyther. We need to find Gym Leader Blaine. I know you made a new friend, but we have to go. Lisa pulled on hers. Raichu, Wartortle. Let the kids go already. Come on, girls. They aren't yours, you know. Luke turned to Ash and Gary. Sorry about our Pokémon. It's okay, Ash replied. I think they are just happy, Gary added. Professor Oak's sweat dropped, thinking, yeah, right. From the Pokémon's perspective, Golduck said, but I want to know more about him. Scyther replied, just a few more minutes. Raichu added, you know, little Pikachu, your trainer is very interesting. I wish I had met him first. Pikachu gave a smug look. Thank you. Eevee grumped, shouldn't you be going with your trainers instead of hogging ours? Wartortle smirked, we may not meet for a long time, so. No. Graveler mused, I do have to wonder where he got his powers from. Pikachu scratched his cheek. We're not sure. We thought at first it was a legendary who blessed him, but we were wrong. Scyther commented, interesting. The elder is coming with another elder. Golduck grumbled, guess we're going to have to leave now. Ash smiled as he petted the Pokémon around him. Gary shrugged and petted the Wartortle near him. They would not be moving from under the Pokémon pile anytime soon, and he could always ask Ash what the Pokémon were talking about later. He smiled, remembering how a bunch of Gyarados had followed them halfway in the beginning, terrifying most of the passengers until Ash had, in Gary's humble opinion, bribed them with his Pokémon cookies. A lady screamed, Great Mew! A Gyarados! Another man shouted, Quick, get away from the edge! A teen yelled, What are those kids doing? Gary, Ash, come over here, Professor Oak called. Come on! Gary exclaimed. We are fine, Grandpa, he added, trying to reassure the older man. They were just curious, Ash said, glancing at the crowd. Pikachu chimed in, feeling confident, while Eevee offered to help. Professor Oak turned to the onlookers, everyone stay back. The Gyarados don't look like they want to attack us, so let's keep it that way. All right. After receiving nods of agreement, he approached Ash and Gary, standing beside them. The Gyarados seemed more interested in observing the two boys than in causing any trouble. The kids were feeding the wild Pokémon with specially approved cookies that the water Pokémon seemed to enjoy. Professor Oak took out a pen and paper, jotting down his observations. Fascinating, he murmured. Gary teased, you want to feed them too, Gramps? Oh, don't mind me. Just a curious old man satisfying his curiosity, Professor Oak replied with a smile. As the scene shifted, the captain watched their interactions with the Gyarados with a mix of trepidation and respect. It was amusing how everyone thought his grandpa would solve the problem, while he was actually busy taking notes. As long as no one attacked the wild Pokémon, they were safe. The Gyarados eventually left, having determined that Ash and Gary posed no threat. Ash believed they were misunderstood creatures, actually quite sweet at heart. Gary thought to himself, I'm definitely getting my own Squirtle and Magikarp. They become powerful once they evolve and are trained. Professor Oak called the kids over, followed by a curious Blaine, who was observing them closely. All right, kids. Tell the Pokémon to return to their trainers now. We need to go. Ash smiled as he grabbed Pikachu. Okay, Professor. Turning to the Pokémon, he said, we can talk to you, our new friends, later, okay? Sorry, guys, but we really have to go now. I don't think the captain would be happy with the delay, especially after what happened yesterday. It was nice meeting you all. Gary chuckled as the Pokemon pouted. Don't worry, we will be here for a week. You can visit us at the Cinnabar Flame Hotel, where we are staying. The Pokemon perked up, making the trainers groan in response. Pikachu and Eevee grumbled quietly, feeling a bit jealous of the attention their trainers were giving to other Pokemon. Luke chimed in, kid. They are going to visit you the entire time we are here. Axel recalled how protective his Scyther could be. Yeah, man. I never knew my Scyther would be so parental until we met you. Lisa sighed, tell me about it. Maybe I should look for a mate for my girl. Ash and Gary waved goodbye to the Pokemon and their new friends as they walked with the professor and Blaine to the hotel. They exchanged curious glances with the older man but chose not to comment. They figured introductions would come soon enough. After reaching the hotel and sending their luggage to their rooms, Professor Oak called the kids over. Blaine, I want you to meet my grandson Gary and his friend Ash Ketchum. Boys, this is an old friend of mine, Blaine. He is the gym leader and researcher of Cinnabar Island. Cool. Nice to meet you, Blaine, Gary said. Ash's eyes sparkled with excitement. Yeah. Nice to meet you, Blaine. Blaine smiled, nice to meet you kids too. Just call me Blaine, none of that Mr. stuff, got it? Now, I'm guessing there's a reason you wanted us to meet Samuel. Professor Oak laughed, looking around. Yes, there is, but not here. Let's go somewhere private first. Blaine observed his friend closely, sensing something significant was being kept from him. We can go to my lab. It's away from the crowd, and none of my assistants or scientists bother me unless it's very important. Professor Oak agreed, and the four of them made their way to the lab. As they walked, Ash and Gary marveled at the bustling port around them. Cinnabar Island had become a popular tourist destination in recent years, and it was thriving. Pikachu perched on Ash's head, taking in the sights, while Eevee walked beside Gary. The adults discussed their research and the challenges they faced. Professor Oak teased Blaine, you're still making trainers run around with riddles, I see. Blaine grinned, I do need a little entertainment, my friend. I no longer go around like I used to, and it can get a bit tedious with nothing but research. Professor Oak raised an eyebrow, I'm surprised you didn't let your granddaughter join you. Blaine replied, she will when she's ready. If she's not ready, then she's not. Meanwhile, Gary pointed at a building. Hey Ash, let's check that store out later. Sure, it looks interesting, Ash agreed, glancing at the other stores Gary mentioned. They walked out of the city onto an empty road leading to the base of the volcano. The lab was built around the volcano, and Ash and Gary were in awe of its size and the various research areas visible. Blaine took out a key card and showed it to the security, who nodded, allowing them to enter. I'll get you all your own passes, so you can enter and leave the living areas easily, Blaine said. Thank you, I appreciate it, Professor Oak replied. Blaine then turned to the children. Of course, the more dangerous areas, like the active research zones, are off-limits for your safety. Ash nodded, understanding. I get it. Gary pouted but agreed, okay, we won't go there. As the four of them entered the lab at the base of the volcano, they were unaware of the watchful eyes of a legendary Pokemon observing them from a distance. The creature sensed the curious power of aura emanating from them and felt intrigued. For now, it decided to watch, curious about the power it had detected. It felt like a fire aura, yet it was distinctly different. Magmar approached Entei and inquired, Lord Entei, that power, it is coming from one of the two human cubs, isn't it? Entei rumbled in agreement, yes, it is, my warrior. I do wonder who it is coming from, though. They are both very young. Magmar glanced down at the lab. If you want, I can ask my sibling to watch them. He is part of the gym leader's team and one of the strongest fire types on this island. NTI observed the human settlement thoughtfully. Perhaps later, after they have settled down. I wish to meet them myself at some point and make a decision. What's this? I can feel Mew's aura on them. The three mischievous siblings marked them. How interesting. Magmar looked intrigued. Truly. How very fascinating indeed. Before NTI could respond, they sensed a familiar aura approaching from the sky. They looked up to see the flame silhouette of the fire bird from the Orange Islands, who shared NTI's territory. Magmar became defensive, worried that a confrontation between the two legendaries would be disastrous. The phoenix flew towards them, hovering majestically in midair. Magmar twitched as he heard a few humans gasp and shout about the fire bird's presence. Hello, Flame Brother. Moltres greeted. Magmar relaxed as NTI returned the greeting. Greetings, Flame Sister. Moltres disregarded the humans' excited chatter. I felt a very curious power entering the fire domain. Yet you did not stop it. Why? NTI looked down at the labs. Mostly curiosity, and I don't go around hunting cubs. Moltres glanced at the lab, her expression serious. I certainly hope the humans here are not attempting to recreate Pokémon like those in the place humans call New Islands. Foolish creatures. NTI chuckled, well sister, I'll be happy to inform you that no, they are not doing that. Moltres looked startled. Oh. Does that mean we have a new Pokémon we didn't know about? How very curious. I can feel the aura of the three Mew siblings. Don't tell me they were the ones to create a new Pokémon. NTI began to snicker, causing Moltres to pause her rant. She shot him an affronted look, while Magmar nearly laughed at their playful banter. If he didn't know them so well, he might have thought they were a couple. NTI rumbled, amused, not a Pokémon, not even close. It is actually a human child. Moltres gaped, her beak opening and closing. A human child? Is this world coming to an end? A child with power? NTI looked down, noticing the two children playing with the fire Pokémon in the fields adjacent to the labs. He motioned to Moltres and pointed them out. She watched in disbelief, sensing the power of the flame and more the blessings the three mischievous Mews had left on the two children. It is one of them, NTI confirmed. Moltres fluttered her wings excitedly. This is a very curious case indeed. Lord NTI. Since they are in your territory, I wish to request to meet them. NTI nodded in agreement. We can meet them together, perhaps. Magmar acknowledged his lord and lady before departing to inform the other fire types residing in the lab. They may have fought for the humans, but their loyalty was to their lord first. This was his home and territory, and he looked forward to the coming days. It was not often that something interesting happened around here, aside from a few fascinating battles and the occasional unwanted guests like poachers and Team Rocket. Unaware of the plans of the two legendaries, Ash and Gary were enjoying their time playing with the fire types under the watchful eyes of Blaine's most trusted Magmar. The two boys were having a blast, while Professor Oak sat down with Blaine to explain Ash's unique abilities. Gary giggled at Blaine's skeptical expression, which later turned to surprise. All right then, my old friend, old rival, explain to me. What has got you worried? Blaine asked seriously. Professor Oak, nursing a cup of tea, replied, well, it's not exactly a what, not really. In fact, Ash here has some very interesting abilities that I need help with, especially in keeping a low profile without attracting unwanted attention. Blaine raised an eyebrow. Right. You expect me to believe that a kid has some special abilities? I'm not saying I don't believe you. It's just, what has that got to do with me? Shouldn't you have taken him to Sabrina? She specializes in psychic abilities, or to the Rhoda Kingdom if he has aura. They would be better equipped to help him. Professor Oak rubbed his neck. Well, we could, but there is more than aura and psychic powers involved. How about we show you? He called Ash over. Ash. Come here for a sec. I want you to do something. Ash patted the Vulpix beside him before getting up and walking to the professor. What is it you need me to do, Professor? Professor Oak pointed at Gary. I want you to show Blaine here what you can do. In a safe place, of course, especially with the flames. Ash smiled. You mean use my elemental aura, Professor? Sure, I don't mind. Much appreciated, Ash, Professor Oak said. Looking around, Ash suggested, I know. Let's use that area over there for this. Blaine appeared a bit alarmed as the fire-type Pokemon, who had been eavesdropping, became excited and swarmed him. Gary followed Ash, along with the Pokemon, to an empty part of the lab where Ash began to focus. At first, nothing happened, but soon a small ball of fire started to form above his hands, growing bigger and brighter. Blaine gaped at the fire that had formed seemingly out of nowhere. Ash smiled, a pink tint on his cheeks. I call it light flame, as it. Well, I can only produce light and some warmth with it. I can't do much yet. Blaine nodded, I see. Pikachu mumbled, I think it's unfair. You should have learned how to use electricity first. Eevee nudged him. One at a time, Gary still hasn't activated his abilities yet. But I can feel the power inside him. Professor Oak then sat Blaine down to explain in detail all the information he had collected so far. Blaine had allowed them access to the fields adjacent to the labs for them to play in after telling Magmar to watch over them. The Magmar looked at them with curiosity and nodded to Blaine. Now, here they were playing with the fire types along with Pikachu and Eevee. The two older Flareons in the lab had taken to grooming Gary's Eevee, which he didn't seem to mind, while Pikachu became quick friends with Charmander, Torchic, Chimchar, and Fennekin, playing tag in a Pokemon style. Vulpix and Litten had decided that Ash and Gary made fine pillows and promptly laid down on their laps, purring as the two boys brushed their fur. Ninetales was sitting behind them, enjoying the calm environment, as calm as it could be with young, rambunctious baby Pokemon playing and running all around. Gary poked his friend's elbow. Hey Ash, I know you have been teaching me to forage and the different types of medicine and uses of plants, right? Ash looked at his friend. Yeah, I have. I will share more stuff with you later if we are allowed to look around this area. Gary fidgeted. That's fine by me, but... Ash gently nudged Vulpix to get up as he had finished brushing one side and wanted her to turn. But? Gary blurted, what about the other stuff? The stuff you can do like what you did earlier. Ash looked at Gary and then at the Pokemon playing around them. I'll be honest with you, Gary. I don't know. I know there is a power inside you, but it is dormant, sleeping, you could say. Gary looked up at his friend. Oh. I didn't realize that. Ash continued, I don't know how to awaken the power inside of you without hurting you. Gary looked excited. But I can do the things you can do, right? Ash giggled at his excitement. You can probably do stuff that I can't, Gary. Not every power is the same, you know. Gary contemplated for a moment. How did you activate yours though? Ash gave a thoughtful look. I'm not sure. I used to meditate when I was younger, if that helps. Gary pouted at that. Meditation? But that's so boring. Ash giggled as he leaned closer to Gary. You know, you can do it at night, right? Before sleeping, I used to meditate for an hour every night. It was a very slow process, but it helped. I was able to make the first colored ball after 3 years of constant practice. I think everyone has abilities, but they just need time and patience to grow, that's all. Gary looked at Ash as he leaned on his shoulder. That makes sense, I guess. I mean, Pokemon have to train a lot to learn their moves, so it's only normal we have to practice as well. Litten looked at the brunette. Naya. Ash smiled. Yup. You can achieve anything if you put your mind to it. That's what I believe. Gary leaned closer and kissed Ash on the forehead. Thank you, Ashy. I'll try meditating from tonight. Maybe by next year or after 2 years, I can do what you can do as well. Ash blushed at the kiss. Gary was the only one to kiss him outside his family, and it felt really nice. I will help you with it too. You won't be alone. I will be there every step of the way. Gary blushed at what he did as well and smiled goofily when Ash made a promise to help him and stay with him. He was really happy to have a best friend like Ash and would not give him up. Maybe they could even be together like Leaf and her boyfriend when they were older. He decided to think about it later. For now, the fire types wanted them to play with them. So far, Ash and Gary were enjoying their time together with Blaine and the other natives in Cinnabar Island. They had become fast friends with the Pokemon that belonged to the assistants and helpers at the lab, even Blaine's no-nonsense and strict Magmar. It amused Blaine how things had become more lively and bright by having the 2 kids with them. He thought back to the discussion he had with Samuel and understood his worry. There had been whispers of different organizations around the world similar to Team Rocket. If any of them were to figure out the child's secret, it would be outright war between them, and they couldn't afford another conflict. Blaine observed the child he was supposed to help. The way he influenced the Pokemon around him was both fascinating and concerning. They were all alarmed when they saw them help the fire types train. Blaine thought, well, at least we can get them registered under the league as both of them already have Pokemon they are training. Blaine looked at Professor Oak after he had finished his story. Well, Sam, I'll be completely honest. I did not see that coming. Samuel sighed. None of us did, to be completely honest. I worry, especially for the time they'll tell me they want to go on a Pokemon journey. So far, we have covered for Ash at home to keep him safe, but out there, he will be on his own. Blaine got up. I understand, old friend. You need not worry too much in Kanto. I shall watch over both of them as much as possible once they start their journey. Professor Oak thanked him and followed Blaine outside to gather the boys. Once they were out, however, they were a bit alarmed, shocked, and bewildered by what they saw. In front of them were the young fire types standing in a group, watching Ash create a fireball. What shocked them was that Blaine's Magmar and a wild Magmar were creating similar fireballs. Their fireballs, however, looked more intense. Blaine and Samuel approached the group slowly so as not to startle them, especially the wild Magmar. Samuel asked, Gary, son. What are you all doing? Gary, who sat with Pikachu and Eevee, smiled. Hey Gramps. Magmar here was curious. Oh, and he said the other wild Magmar is his sibling. Blaine asked, watching his old partner and the new addition, curious. Kid? Sibling? Gary nodded, watching the 3. Aha. Ash told me I have a dormant power inside me too, and we were trying to see if I could reach it through meditation. It got Magmar over there interested, and he joined us. We meditated for an hour before Ash decided to make more light ball for us to play with. The big guy was very interested in learning how to battle, and now here they were. A wild Magmar watched them from a ridge above the field to the west. Gary pointed at the ridge, explaining that the curious Magmar had entered the lab grounds. Although the 2 Magmars might have clashed, Ash suggested that the wild one could join them as long as he didn't cause trouble. The wild Magmar agreed, likely intrigued by the prospect of learning a new move. Samuel glanced at Gary, slightly alarmed by his explanation, but Gary was too focused on his friend. Blaine would have laughed at his old friend's expression if he weren't so focused on his partner and the wild Pokemon that had decided to join them. Blaine's Magmar was not fond of other Magmars in the lab area. Meanwhile, Gary's attention was on Ash and the 2 Magmars, who were preparing to practice their moves on the target posts in the field. Magmar nodded at Ash and pulled his hands back before launching a fireball toward the target on his right. The ball flew straight before losing momentum, landing just below the 2 targets. Ash cheered, that was really good. Don't look down, Magmar, it was your first try, right? Try again until you get it right. Blaine added, that was impressive, my friend. I didn't know you could do that. Very interesting. The stoic Magmar nodded in acknowledgement while the wild one playfully picked Ash up. Blaine's Magmar turned to Ash and gently patted him on the head in thanks, making Ash giggle. He shot a warning look at the wild Magmar, signaling him not to hurt the child. The wild Magmar simply hugged Ash, his eyes sparkling with curiosity, which made Pikachu bristle in annoyance and rush to Ash's shoulder, ready to defend his partner. 3 days had passed since that incident. Samuel Oak had to leave because they decided to register both children into the league for their safety and to keep an eye on them if they embarked on a journey. Blaine observed the 2 children meditating with his Magmar, who was typically aloof except when it came to battling and training, and the wild Magmar, who had taken a liking to the lab. Blaine noticed his Magmar was irritated but had yet to confront the wild one, though his eyes hinted at potential retribution. His assistant, Corey, and helpers Mark, Cooper, Rex, and Trix were astonished by the scene. Corey mumbled, this is completely illogical. Magmar are not social creatures, yet. Mark replied, well, as they say, seeing is believing. Trix chimed in excitedly, but this is a great opportunity. We can observe how they care for the younger ones. Rex looked at his sister skeptically, that would make sense if it were a Magby, but those are human kids. Cooper rubbed his neck, I guess this shows us we still have much to learn about the Magmar line. The others nodded in agreement, watching as the 2 Magmars practiced, one keeping an eye on the children as they played with the Pokémon. The Magmars were clearly communicating, though their conversation remained a mystery to the humans. From the perspective of the Pokémon, Magmar hissed, what do you mean the Fire Lords wish to meet the children? The wild Magmar shrugged, exactly what it means. They caught their interest when they entered their domain. Magmar grumbled, seriously? They are just cubs. The wild Magmar replied seriously, you can't blame them. Do you feel the power one of them has? Even the other child, though his power is not awakened yet, has strength just waiting to be unleashed. Magmar took a deep breath to calm himself. When do they plan to meet them? Remember, they won't be here for long. Soon, the wild Magmar said. Magmar turned to the 2 human children he had grown fond of and sighed, fine, just don't expect me to stop Blaine from searching for them. It won't be pretty if he has to. The wild Magmar nodded. They were among the oldest of their kind, much older than most of the other fire types on the island. He pondered how to convince the children to meet the Fire Lords, not wanting to frighten them. It turned out the wild Magmar didn't need to worry about convincing the 2 children. Ash approached Blaine, saying, Blaine, this may sound weird, but can Gary and I go foraging up the mountain? Blaine looked at the 2 kids, recalling Samuel's warnings about the more dangerous wild Pokémon in the area. Kids, this isn't Pallet Town. The wild Pokémon here are more dangerous than the ones there. Corey thought to herself, you are ignoring that Magmar. Ash pleaded with wide eyes, please, Blaine. We're only here for a few days. I want to collect a souvenir and maybe find things not available in Pallet Forest. Gary joined in, please, Blaine. We promise we'll behave. Blaine sighed, I know your grandpa told me about your habits. Unfortunately, I don't have a Pokémon I can spare to go with you today. One of the trainers you 2 hang out with in the evenings solved my riddle, and I have a match with her. Gary expressed his disappointment, I was looking forward to finding stuff. Ash pouted, oh woo. Rex suggested, we can let our Pokémon watch over them. Mew knows they have my Flareon and Houndoom wrapped around their fingers. Trix eyed her boss, you just want to keep them close to observe them. Cooper added, what are we, cold lava? Mark looked toward the door, guys. We have a guest. Before he could say more, the wild Magmar strutted into the lab, startling everyone. The Magmar gestured for someone to watch over the 2 while they were outside. The adults didn't understand his intentions, which made him exasperated. He turned to Blaine, pointing at his sibling's pokeball to release him. Blaine looked alarmed, worried the wild Magmar wanted to challenge him. However, the two Magmar communicated with each other before Blaine's Magmar turned to him and nodded at his wild sibling and the kids. Ash giggled, saying that the wild Magmar was indicating they could trust him to watch over them. Blaine looked bewildered and asked if Ash could understand what Magmar was saying now. Ash nodded shyly, explaining that while some words were difficult, he understood when Magmar said they could trust him. Blaine appeared contemplative and decided to let the kids have fun but reminded them to be careful. He turned to the wild Magmar, expressing a silent threat that if anything happened to the kids, he would hold him accountable. The wild Magmar nodded, understanding the unspoken warning, and approved of the human his sibling had chosen. Ash and Gary whooped in joy and got ready to follow their usual routine. Blaine watched them go, half wondering if it was a good idea before turning to Cooper. Blaine instructed Cooper to go with them, and Cooper looked surprised. Blaine explained that he wanted Cooper to document everything, the Pokémon they met, how they reacted, and what items they collected. Cooper, intrigued, agreed to the task, sensing that something interesting was bound to happen. Blaine then put on his gym leader smile and turned to his Magmar, ready to face a challenger and a challenge. Magmar nodded in agreement, eager for the upcoming gym battle. Cooper watched the two boys prepare for their hiking trip, which they referred to as a foraging trip. He reflected on how kids still enjoyed playing with Pokémon, even while foraging in the wild. The Pokémon were helping them pack their essentials, proving to be excellent helpers. Cooper held a video camera, recording the entire scene, thinking that no one would believe it without proof. Ash turned to Cooper, asking if he wanted a specific type of lunch. Cooper inquired about their meal preparations, and Gary explained they were making sushi and egg rolls for themselves, along with special poke food for Pikachu, Eevee, and Magmar. Cooper mentioned his allergies and shared what his Pokémon enjoyed. Ash assured him they would be ready soon. As they prepared, Cooper's Houndoom nudged him, expressing excitement about the adventure ahead. Hitmontop joined them, and they discussed their partner's readiness for the encounters they would face. The wild Magmar called out to them, reminding them that the kids just wanted to meet new Pokémon. Cooper led the kids out of the lab, where the wild Magmar was waiting to guide them to the wilder side of the volcanic island. Houndoom stayed close to Gary and Eevee, while Hitmontop remained near Ash and Pikachu, forming a protective formation around the children. Cooper reminded himself to focus on recording the adventure. Pikachu chatted with Hitmontop, sharing stories about the items Ash loved to collect. Hitmontop listened intently, while Houndoom observed the wild Magmar, sensing that he expected the unusual stories from Ash. Cooper noticed the exchange of looks between the Pokémon and felt a mix of confusion and curiosity about what lay ahead. The Pokémon shook their heads and pointed to a clearing instead. Cooper looked around the area, noting, "We can camp here and use it as a point for us to rest." "Sounds good to me," Gary replied. Ash and Gary set up a picnic table and placed the food bags on it. Afterward, they began to explore the surroundings, slowly making their way up the volcanic mountain. Unbeknownst to them, they were being watched by two powerful beings. Moltres observed the children with interest. "How intriguing," it mused. NTI inquired, "What is interesting?" "The children. One has active powers, while the other has powers that are not active yet," Moltres explained. "You are right. They have become more interesting, haven't they?" NTI agreed, amused. Moltres purred, "I'm actually looking forward to surprising the older human." NTI chuckled, "It is always amusing to watch their reactions, isn't it? Come, brother. We must greet them." "They are getting closer," Moltres urged. NTI prepared to jump down from its perch. Meanwhile, Ash and Gary were collecting various plants growing on the island, including hibiscus, multicolored roses, and fruits like grapes and pokeberries. Cooper watched as they gathered items that caught their attention. At one point, Gary discovered a mega stone, leaving him puzzled. "What stone is this? I didn't find it in any book." Gary exclaimed, holding it up. Cooper examined the stone. That's a mega stone. Not much is known about them, except that you need a keystone to use it. Gary's face scrunched up in confusion. You keep it, then. Cooper snapped out of his thoughts. What? But you found it. I don't know what it does, though. You guys research these things, right? You can figure it out and tell me. Gary suggested. Cooper sighed softly. All right, if that's what you want. I promise to tell you everything I learn about it. Gary grinned. Great. Ash is almost done collecting the fruit samples he wants. We're thinking about returning to camp for a late lunch. Cooper glanced at his watch. Wow. We are late, aren't we? I didn't realize lunch hour had already passed. Ash, who had walked over, laughed. Not the first time it's happened. We usually have our parents' Pokemon to remind us to eat back home. If your Hitmontop hadn't pointed out the time, I wouldn't have realized either. Hitmontop nodded, giving Cooper a look that seemed to say, see. They listen when we tell them it's time to eat and rest. Why can't you? We worry about you. Feeling a bit scolded, Cooper decided it was time to head back to camp. They began their trek back to where they had left their food with Houndoom, who had chosen to relax instead of exploring. Houndoom opened his eyes as he watched his trainer and the two boys return, noticing a few wild fire-type Pokemon quietly following them but doing nothing. Gary took out plates for the 5 Pokemon with them, as well as extras. Cooper looked at him curiously but said nothing, instead helping Ash prepare plates for the 3 of them. After a while, Gary called out to the forest, all right, everyone. These plates of poke food are for you. Come and enjoy. Cooper looked up from the plates Ash was filling and watched in amazement as 6 wild Pokemon emerged to join them. There was a Vulpix, 2 Slugma, 1 Numel, and 2 Cyndaquil. He was surprised to see a Numel on Cinnabar and made a mental note to report it, as they only knew of a Camerupt that belonged to a trainer who had passed through once. Gary commented while eating his sushi, that Numel is young. What makes you say that? Cooper asked. I saw the 2 Cyndaquil sitting with his egg until he hatched. I didn't want to scare them, so I stayed at a distance until they noticed me. When they did, I gave them some berries I had collected. The little guy gobbled them up, Gary explained. Ash added, that's why the 3 of them have been following you around, albeit from a distance. Yeah. I'm glad the little guy wasn't alone, Gary said. Cooper smiled. You talk like this has happened before. It did. Eevee here hatched from an egg we found abandoned in the forest, and he wasn't the only one. We also found a Pidgey, Poliwhirl, and even an egg of a Swablu, Gary replied. Cooper frowned. Looks like we need to talk to trainers about not abandoning their eggs in the wild. That is not how you treat Pokemon. Ash chimed in, Professor Oak said the same thing. Yeah, and he was pretty upset about it, Gary nodded. They finished their lunch, with Ash and Gary sharing stories about their adventures in Pallet Town. Cooper was skeptical when they mentioned Mew, but when Gary showed him a picture of 3 different colored Mew playing with Pokemon, he began to believe them. As they were cleaning up, a roar echoed from above. Magmar smirked, they got tired of waiting. After all. Houndoom shot him a look, you were seriously going to make them wait. Magmar shrugged and approached Ash and Gary, beckoning them closer before turning to 2 silhouettes descending the mountain. Cooper looked up, picking up the video camera with a mix of dread and excitement, unsure of what Pokemon was coming. As they got closer, his apprehension turned to disbelief. He couldn't believe what he was seeing and pinched his arm, earning a confused look from Hitmontop. NTI and Moltres reached the clearing where the humans and Pokemon were gathered. NTI let out a roar while Moltres screeched as they descended. Ash and Gary gazed at the 2 with sparkling eyes, while Cooper held the camera, dumbfounded. NTI and Moltres reveled in the varied reactions from the humans. Wow! That was so cool! Ash exclaimed. Yeah. Pretty cool, Gary agreed. Cooper mumbled, I am so happy I came here. Pikachu and Eevee watched the newcomers with caution. The familiar mischievous glint in their eyes reminded them of the Mew trio, causing them to stick close to their partners, uncertain of what would happen next. Pikachu and Eevee were understandably wary, standing before two well-known fire legendaries, notorious for their power. Their partners, human children filled with curiosity, were oblivious to the potential danger. Memories of a previous incident, when the Mew trio had caused chaos by taking Ash and Gary, flooded their minds. It was a beautiful morning in Pallet Town, with the sun shining and Pidgeys singing. Pikachu woke up alone on their shared bed, initially thinking Ash was either in the bathroom or already downstairs. He bounced to the kitchen, eager for breakfast with his partner. Delia smiled at Pikachu, asking if Ash was still asleep. Pikachu, sensing something was off, indicated that Ash was likely washing up. Delia, understanding Pikachu's gestures better now, confirmed his suspicion. As Red and Cypress joined them, they quickly realized Ash was missing. Lucario and Arcanine, who had come in with Cypress, frowned, knowing Ash was usually an early riser. Delia expressed her concern, prompting Pikachu to become anxious. Lucario reassured him, using his calming aura to ease Pikachu's worries. Red went outside to check the front garden but returned with bad news: Ash was nowhere to be found. Cypress remained calm, suggesting that if no malicious presence had been detected, it was likely a Pokémon was involved. Red speculated whether Ash had sneaked out, which Delia found amusingly plausible. Just then, the phone rang, and Red answered it. Leaf was on the other end, frantically asking if Gary was with them. Red's heart sank as he realized both Ash and Gary were missing. Leaf's brother, Green, joined the conversation, and they quickly decided to meet outside the forest, hoping to find the boys. Delia urged Red to get dressed while she prepared breakfast for everyone, ensuring they wouldn't be hungry during their search. Once ready, Red, along with the Pokémon, headed toward the forest, where they met Green, Leaf, and her boyfriend Bill. Red shared the food his mom had packed, emphasizing the importance of staying nourished during their search. As they ventured deeper into the woods, Arcanine and Lucario used their senses to track any signs of Ash and Gary, while Leaf's Butterfree and Bill's Venomoth scouted from above. They retraced the boys' usual haunts, asking wild Pokémon for any information. A Pidgey eventually flew in, mentioning that its mother might know something, and soon returned with a large Pidgeot. Pidgeot greeted the group, ready to assist in their search. You must be the ones my sweet Sheikling here keeps telling me about. Pikachu greeted, hello ma'am. Nice to meet you. We need your help. Our partners went missing last night. Pidgeot tilted her head and asked, do you know when and how? Eevee replied, it was when we were asleep. Pidgeot pondered for a moment, I see. There is one mischievous creature that is capable of doing this. I believe you met 3 of them. Lucario inquired, what do you mean, Lady Pidgeot? Arcanine grumbled, oh no. Don't tell me. Pidgeot confirmed, your friend guessed it. Arcanine sighed, it's Mew. I knew they were planning some mischief. Pidgeot nodded and flew off after instructing her chick to help the group. Lucario approached Cypress and shared what they had learned. Cypress was taken aback. He groaned, not only do I have to worry about people like Team Rocket kidnapping my kid but also legendaries. So what now? Bill asked, what do you mean Mew? Leaf reminded him, remember what I told you about my youngest brother meeting Mew and the photos I showed you? Bill nodded, his expression brightening, so we have a chance to see and meet Mew? Red confirmed, seems like it. I'm not sure why they would take them though. It's not like we don't allow them to play. Lucario sat down, while Eevee and Pikachu were furious. Their partners had been taken without their consent, and they were not happy about it. Pidgey spoke up, you know there is a place the 3 of them hang around a lot when they are here. I can take you there if you want. Pikachu and Eevee jumped up and followed Pidgey, with Red and the others trailing behind, worried about where they were going. They ventured deeper into the forest and came across a clearing where they could hear familiar laughter and voices. Pikachu and Eevee ran toward the sound, followed by the others. When they reached the clearing, they saw Ash and Gary laughing at a Mew doing transformations. Pikachu called out, "Ash!" Eevee chimed in, "Gary!" Ash and Gary turned, blinking in surprise before brightening up and catching the Pokémon when they jumped on them. They were surprised to see their families behind the Pokémon but realized they had been gone for a long time. Ash turned to the three Mews, "Well guys, it was fun but we have to go home now." The three Mews pouted in disappointment. Gary giggled, "Don't worry, we can play again, alright." Cypress added, "Next time just tell us first." "We were worried." The Mews looked at Cypress and then at their favorite humans before nodding. The silver Mew nuzzled Ash, while the pink Mew kissed Gary's cheek. The black Mew patted their heads, earning growls from Eevee and Pikachu. Then the three of them used teleport to disappear. Bill looked around, "Hey, we're back to the edge of the forest." Leaf's eyes sparkled, "We saw Mew." "That too, three of them." Green lifted the camera he had become accustomed to carrying, "And I got proof right here. Gramps is gonna flip he missed out." Red snorted before checking on Ash and Gary, who were being smothered by Eevee and Pikachu. "You two okay?" Ash replied, "We're good." Gary added, "Yeah. What's for lunch?" "We're hungry." Cypress shook his head at the two, "Let's go home first, yeah." That was the moment both Pikachu and Eevee realized their partners did not have a single self-preservation bone in their bodies. To say they became overprotective and trained twice as hard would be putting it lightly. Now they were seeing a similar mischievous glint in the fire legendary's eyes, and it did not sit well with them. Cooper exclaimed, "Unbelievable. This is truly unbelievable." Ash looked at Moltres and Entei before turning to Cooper, "What is unbelievable?" Cooper explained, "Well, there were speculations before that Moltres and Entei were unable to be together in the same place. People theorized it was because they were both fire legendaries and fought against each other over being the ultimate one. Guess what, that theory is false." Moltres snorted, "The fire realm is large, and I would rather not carry that headache on my own." Entei rumbled in amusement, "Indeed, why fight when you can share the burden and solve problems faster?" Pikachu and Eevee were wary as they looked at the two legendaries. It grated on their nerves how the three Mews wanted to keep taking Ash and Gary and leaving them behind. Luckily, Ash and Gary were awake every time and took them along, making the three Mews pout at not having their complete attention like the first time, but they would take what they got. Entei welcomed them, "Welcome to the fire realm, little ones." Moltres motioned for Ash and Gary to follow, "Come, we have some things to discuss." Ash and Gary exchanged glances before shrugging and following the two legendaries, much to their partner's consternation. Cooper followed eagerly, excited to learn more about the elusive legendaries. Houndoom and Hitmontop trailed behind their partner, having talked with Pikachu and Eevee, and now they had no choice but to believe their stories about meeting Mew. Houndoom wondered how he would fare against a legendary fire Pokémon, while Hitmontop was curious about them. To be continued. The fact they did not attack us straight away is significant, Cooper remarked. Ash looked at him curiously. "What do you mean, Cooper? Why would they attack us?" Gary added, "Yeah, they are wild Pokémon, not berserkers." Cooper observed the two kids, who were genuinely curious and confused. They truly believed Pokémon would never hurt them. He recalled the time when Professor Oak explained their habits and personalities, and he finally understood the professor's concerns. Setting down the video camera, Cooper scratched his head. "How do I explain? I'm not sure if I should even tell you about this. You aren't trainers yet." Ash patted his hand as they continued walking. "It's okay, Cooper. Just tell us what you can. We'll figure things out soon enough." "We usually do." Gary chimed in, "Yeah, like how we figured out why the descriptions of Mew vary so much." There's more than one Mew, there are 3, to be exact. Cooper chuckled. I know. When your grandpa showed proof to the League, they were shocked. I don't think I've ever seen the boss or the president so surprised. He kept your names out of it, of course. Ash smiled. Yeah, we asked him to. Dad told me there are bad people out there who might try to use us to capture and hurt our friends. Gary nodded. We don't want to see them hurt or lose them. Cooper smiled gently at the 2 kids. They were kind and caring. Well, your dad was right to worry. There are people out there like that. He pointed at the 2 legendaries. In fact, those types of people keep trying to capture them. Ash looked up at Antioch, who was leading the way, and at Moltres flying above them. Gary frowned, feeling uneasy about the idea of someone wanting to hurt his new friends. It didn't sit well with him at all. Why would they want to hurt them? That's ridiculous. They're not savage creatures, they're smart and have feelings just like we do, Gary exclaimed. Cooper ruffled Gary's hair. Some people are just selfish that way. All we can do is keep those people in check. Ash inquired, how would you do that? Wouldn't they fight back? Pikachu looked at Cooper with curiosity, while Eevee listened intently. Houndoom and Hitmontop followed at a relaxed pace. Cooper chuckled at how similar the boys and Pokémon acted, it was endearing. He suppressed the urge to cuddle them and answered their questions instead. Well, see this? Cooper said, patting the video camera. This has evidence I can present to the world as proof that wild Pokémon are not savage creatures. It will show that Pokémon are not cruel and would never hurt or attack unless provoked. There are greedy people who claim Pokémon are mindless beasts that should be controlled. Moltres and Antioch tensed at the conversation. They had faced many would-be masters, and it was infuriating to think that people viewed them that way after all they had done to nurture the land. Cooper continued, these people pretend they're acting for the good of the world, but in reality, they're just after their own selfish gain. Gary's anger flared, and he accidentally blasted a stone nearby. How could they do that? That's unfair. Eevee and Pikachu looked shocked and proud of Gary. They were amazed that he had tapped into his power and proud of the strength he had displayed. Cooper, taken aback by the explosion, was speechless. He had thought only Ash possessed such abilities. Gary's eyes glowed with determination. Antioch rumbled, while Moltres cooed at a little chick that had woken up. Ash approached Gary and hugged him. Will showing the videos really help? Cooper shook himself out of his thoughts. Yes, it's proof after all. What you just did, kid. That's what your grandpa was talking about. Gary, still bewildered, looked at the rock he had blown up. Did I do that? That was really me. Ash smiled and kissed his cheek. Yes, you did. Congratulations, Gary. Your first accidental magic. Gary blushed, smiling. Thanks, Ash. That felt good in a way. Ash nodded. Well, you did let your anger out, so now that you're not angry anymore, it probably feels good. Cooper whistled, impressed. So, emotions play a part in accessing your power? Ash shook his head. Sometimes intense emotions do, but not always. We need to train just like anyone else to use our powers properly. Gary looked determined. And we will train hard, not just to get stronger, but to protect our friends. Cooper smiled at their enthusiasm, reminiscent of his early trainer days and the aura users he had met during his training. If you want, I would love to train with you, Cooper offered. Houndoom and Hitmontop perked up at the mention of training. It would be interesting to train with humans who could use abilities as well. Ash and Gary exchanged excited glances as Cooper continued, back when I was a trainer, I met an aura user and traveled with him for a bit, so I know a thing or two about it. Their faces lit up with joy, and as they prepared to follow Antioch and Moltres again, they noticed the 2 legendaries watching them silently. They had a bright gleam in their eyes that made Pikachu and Eevee become wary immediately. Cooper felt a sense of intrigue about the situation. NTI rumbled, impressed by the potential he sensed, noting that the young trainers hadn't even started their training yet. Moltres agreed, expressing her curiosity about the future of the three siblings. Pikachu growled a warning, insisting that they wouldn't let anyone take their friends. Eevee nodded in agreement, mentioning their concerns about the three Mew. Moltres reassured them, saying they had no intention of taking the trainers further than this point, as they were not ready yet. Houndoom perked up, questioning if the trainers were capable of handling the power of fire. NTI acknowledged their potential, but emphasized that training was essential. Hitmontop found it fascinating, noting that he had never heard of humans, aside from aura users, being able to wield elemental powers. Moltres explained that while it was rare, it was not unheard of, especially before the terrible war that had devastated their world. Cooper, Ash, and Gary watched the Pokémon converse, deciding to relax for a moment. Cooper wondered what they were discussing, and Ash suggested they could ask Pikachu and Eevee later. Gary, excited, asked if Cooper was recording the interaction. Cooper confirmed, noting that it would be valuable research material to observe how the Pokémon interacted and to make notes on their behavior. Before they could continue their conversation, NTI and Moltres approached them. The trainers looked up at the majestic Pokémon, who had calmed their own Pokémon, allowing them to relax. Ash greeted NTI and Moltres, and Gary followed suit. The two legendary Pokémon nodded in acknowledgement. Moltres spread her wings, creating a stunning display, and a feather floated down in front of Ash. NTI roared and created a crystallized mound, breaking it to reveal a flame-shaped crystal, which he presented to Gary. They encouraged Ash and Gary to take the feather and crystal, explaining that these gifts could serve as focal points for their powers. With that, the two Fire Lords departed, NTI leaping higher until he disappeared from view, and Moltres flying off into the evening sky. Cooper lowered the camera, surprised by the day's events. Houndoom and Hitmontop agreed with their trainer's sentiment. Meanwhile, Pikachu and Eevee excitedly shared what they had discussed with Ash, who listened with wide eyes. Ash then relayed the information to Gary and Cooper, who were both intrigued by the gifts. Gary expressed his enthusiasm, eager to use the gifts to enhance their abilities. Ash agreed but wondered how they would help. Cooper suggested they return to the lab to figure it out, reminding them of their promise to hang out with Axel at the festival, noting the time. Realizing they were running late, Ash quickly stored the feather and crystal in 2 bottles, and they all nodded in agreement to head back. As they made their way down the mountain, Cooper chuckled at the thought of the reactions to his video. Gary shared in the laughter, while Ash giggled, and their Pokémon shook their heads at their antics. The group descended the mountain swiftly, waving goodbye to their new Pokémon friends before heading inside to prepare for the festival. Cooper left to inform his boss about their adventure, especially the baby Numel they had encountered. Ash helped Gary with his outfit while Gary assisted Ash with his belt. Ash wore a blue kimono with a white obi adorned with red petals, while Gary donned a kimono with a black haori and a gray nagagi. Pikachu and Eevee entered the room, stopping in their tracks at the sight of their partners. They thought the two looked great together and rushed over to nuzzle them affectionately, showcasing their own festival costumes. Ash rubbed Pikachu's head, complimenting him, and Gary scratched Eevee's chin, praising her as well. Pikachu thanked Ash, while Eevee echoed the sentiment towards both trainers. Ash blushed at Eevee's words, prompting a curious look from Gary, who then understood the compliment and hugged Eevee in appreciation. With a fan in hand, Ash turned to Gary, his cheeks still slightly pink, and suggested they head out. Gary smiled and opened the door, inviting Ash to go first. Ash giggled and stepped outside, waiting for Gary to catch up after locking the door. The two held hands as they made their way to join Axel at the festival grounds. As they walked, they heard a familiar shout coming from the lab, causing them to laugh at the recognition of that sound. Gary, still chuckling, asked if Ash had any idea how the gifts would help them. Ash giggled, suggesting they could create something to hold them, like a necklace or bracelet, to enhance their powers. I would say wands, but I have no idea how to make that, Gary said thoughtfully. Wands would be cool, but we would need a holder of sorts to keep the wand. I think the ring idea would be best. Maybe we can make earrings out of the feather and crystal, Gary continued. Ash nodded enthusiastically. Matching earrings? That sounds really good. Gary's cheeks tinted slightly pink as he realized what he was suggesting but decided to stick with it. Yeah. You can have one while I have the other. As they reached the festival grounds, they continued discussing how they wanted the earrings to look. They paused to look around for Axel, Luke, and Lisa. Spotting them waving from a food stand, Ash and Gary waved back and walked over to join their friends. Lisa was dressed in a pink kimono with a black obi adorned with pink petals, while Luke and Axel wore black yukatas with gray sashes. You two look really good today, Lisa complimented them. Axel chuckled, you're really lucky to have such an adorable girl beside you, Gary. Don't make fun of them, guys, but I agree. You two look really cute, Luke added. Both Ash and Gary blushed at the compliments. Gary considered correcting them but decided against it, knowing that if Ash wanted to, he would do it himself. Suddenly, their Pokémon burst out of their Pokeball, surprising everyone. Initially taken aback, they soon felt exasperated, as this had been happening throughout their visit to Cinnabar Island. Girls. Boys. Behave. Lisa called out. Macamp, Scyther, Azumarill, Ninetales, Totodile, Fortress. No. Axel exclaimed. Not again. Do you kids have some kind of attraction on you? Luke asked, shaking his head. Gary laughed, oh sweet Mew, we do not. Ash giggled, we would have all the Pokémon after us otherwise. Axel shook his head, it's still a little freaky how the Pokémon seem to want to follow you around, you know. It's not our fault, Ash pouted. We know, kid, Luke reassured him, patting his head. Lisa took Ash's hand. Well, let's check this festival out, shall we? Everyone shouted in agreement, yeah. The Pokémon followed them as they explored the stalls, sampling food and playing games. By the end of the day, Ash had a Lucario plushie, Gary had a Dragonite plushie, Luke had a Psyduck plushie, Axel had a Fortress plushie, and Lisa ended up with a Clefairy plushie. Although they hadn't planned on getting toys for themselves, Ash and Gary insisted on sharing. They had already chosen a Squirtle and Charmander plush for green and red. Next, they headed to the Pokémon stalls that sold various types of poke food and items. In addition to food and recipes, there were ribbons, toys, belts, potions, and many other miscellaneous items. Lisa decided to visit the ribbon stall with Ash to pick out some ribbons for herself and her Pokémon. She thought about getting a lovely silver ribbon with pink hearts for Ash, giggling at how adorable he would look with it. Meanwhile, her Pokémon browsed the stall, finding items that caught their eye. Raichu picked a clip with a lightning design, Wartortle chose a blue ribbon with bubble decorations, Wigglytuff found an ankle belt with white studs, Meganium selected a ring with a leaf design, Bellossom discovered a bracelet with leaves, and Meowth found a black belt studded with spikes that he liked. Pikachu helped Lisa choose a ribbon for Ash, debating between the silver ribbon with pink hearts and a yellow ribbon with red hearts. You just want the yellow because it's your color, Lisa teased. Obviously, Pikachu replied. Understanding Pikachu's thoughts, Lisa giggled, while Ash chimed in, how about I get both? I can wear them on alternate days. Lisa smiled brightly. Of course, Ash. Here. I'll buy them for you. Ash hurried after her. You don't have to, Lisa. I can buy them myself. Lisa gently stopped him from taking out his money. I want to, please. Okay. But only this, alright? If I want other stuff, I'll get it myself, Ash replied quietly. Sure. Lisa beamed. While Ash and Lisa were at the accessory stall, Axel and Luke took Gary with them to check out the poke food and potion stalls. Gary looked at the different potions and poke food recipes with wide eyes, clearly intrigued. Luke's Pokemon Golduck, Graveler, Alakazam, Pidgeot, Venomoth, and Charizard were enjoying some of the poke food that caught their attention. Axel's Pokemon helped him decide which potions to take. Noticing Gary's interest, Luke asked, "Do you want to get some potions, Gary?" Gary shook his head. "Not the potion itself. I'm curious about the recipe actually." "A recipe? For the potion?" Axel inquired. Gary nodded. "Yeah. Ash and I learned how to make a simple recovery potion before coming here. These look really complicated and interesting to learn about." Luke brightened. "You are learning about potions? That's really cool." A girl with green hair tied in a bun overheard their conversation. "You are into potion making as well?" Gary smiled sheepishly. "A bit, and only one potion so far." "That's amazing. My name is Cassandra, and welcome to my shop. I sell potions and remedies made with the help of my paras and parasects," she introduced herself. Axel added, "Oh yeah. I've heard that the mushrooms parasect produces are actually rich in nutrients and useful ingredients in potion making." Cassandra nodded. "Correct. Would you be interested in buying some?" Axel thought for a moment. "Well, we are going to challenge Koga next, and from what I heard, he specializes in poison." Cassandra nodded again. "I know just what you need." She went to the back of the shop and returned with 3 bottles. "These are anti-poison, anti-stun spore, and recovery potions." Axel nodded. "That should help. I'll take them. Can I get 2 recovery potions, actually?" "Sure." Cassandra replied. Gary looked curious. "Koga is the new poison-type master, isn't he?" "You got that right, kid," Luke said, ruffling Gary's hair. Gary yelped before fixing his hair again, pouting at Luke, who laughed at his cute expression. It was easy to see why his Pokemon adored him, he was just too sweet. Cassandra smiled at Axel. "Your brother is really cute and smart." Axel smirked at Gary's blush. "I'm really lucky." Axel then handed one of the recovery potions to Gary, who looked confused. He just wanted to cuddle and protect the kid at that point. Gary asked, "What's this for?" Axel replied, "You said you are learning about potions, right? So take it, this bottle has the ingredients written on it." Cassandra added, "I believe in being transparent in business. That way, customers trust my product more." Gary protested, "I can buy my own bottle, you don't need to get me one. Besides, you guys already paid for the food and toys." Luke smiled softly, "Just take it, kiddo. Consider it a gift, yeah." Axel encouraged, "Listen to big brother, Gary." Luke laughed and led the group away after getting the items they wanted to meet with Lisa and Ash. Lisa and Ash were finishing up their shopping as well. Diana, the shop owner, asked, "Would you like to add something else to the ribbons you are buying for your sister, miss?" Lisa grinned brightly, "A pair of those Milotic clips for her, please." Ash spluttered, "Lisa, I told you, I can buy my own stuff." Diana giggled at the adorable sight, "The clips have a 50% discount, so with the ribbons and ankle and collars, your total is $450 poke dollars." Ash said, $450? I'll pay for my stuff, Lisa." Lisa replied, "Ah. But I already gave her the money. Welp. Time to go." "Thanks, Diana." They met the others halfway through leaving, with Ash and Gary pouting at the fact they were tricked. However, they were determined not to let their friends go without getting them gifts either, so they made plans to create some surprises. The group and their Pokemon headed toward the field where the bonfire would be lit, signaling the end of the festival. Lisa took Ash and Gary to dance with her while Axel and Luke stayed behind, taking pictures of them as they danced. They enjoyed their time together until the bonfire ended, before the trainers led the kids back to the research lab where they were staying. Axel said, I still can't believe you guys are staying here. I mean, you told us before, but you know. Gary laughed, I know, the head here is not exactly into socialization. Luke added, I'm more surprised Professor Oak let you stay here by yourself. Ash spoke up, Cooper has been watching over us, so you don't need to worry. Lisa said, we know that, but what can I say? We care about you kids. Ash and Gary exchanged glances before Ash asked, you got your marsh badge already, right, Axel? Axel replied, yup, got it today in fact. Lisa chimed in, I will get mine tomorrow. I finally figured out what the riddle meant. Luke smirked, got mine the day I arrived. Gary nodded, meet us tomorrow evening by the beach after the battle is over. We are having a barbecue together. Luke exclaimed excitedly, barbecue. It's been a long time since I had one. Ash added, you three have been training hard. A break to relax and wind down will be good, don't you think? Lisa hugged Ash, best little sister ever. Ash blushed but hugged back before they said goodbye to the three trainers and entered the research lab. It was a fun way to end the day, and the festival was very enjoyable. The next day came bright and early for Ash and Gary. They had fallen asleep quickly after returning from their fun evening. After finishing their morning routines, the two of them headed toward the mess area, which was bustling. Food was being prepared for both humans and Pokemon, and everyone was eating with enthusiasm, as if something big was about to happen. Cooper called them over, Ash, Gary, over here kids, I picked breakfast for you as well. Gary grinned, looking away from the long line of people and Pokemon, no need to wait in the long line for breakfast. Yay! Ash smiled as he sat down, good morning, Cooper. Is something happening today? Gary looked around, yeah. Everyone is so pumped up today, well, more than normal. Cooper grinned, you could say that. In fact, one of the Elite Four is coming by today. Ash blinked, Elite Four. Why? Did something happen? Cooper explained, yeah, you could say something did happen. Do you know? The flames used in the Pokemon tournament are actually flames of a Moltres. Gary nodded, taking toast, bread, and eggs with bacon, oh. We know about that bit. Moltres blessed the tournament with his flames, at least that's what the books say. Ash nodded, taking a plate of toast, omelette, and bacon. It was very interesting to read, especially the part where Moltres judged the warriors and deemed them worthy. Cooper grinned, never thought you would be interested in reading. Ash shrugged, I love reading a good book. Gary asked, so, what happened? What is going on? Cooper rubbed his chin, well. It turns out Moltres can use the flame he bestowed for the tournament as a way to appear in Kanto. On the same day you two arrived here, which was 3 days ago, Moltres appeared in the Champions Hall, shocking everyone before it flew off, leaving the torch empty. It startled and scared a lot of people, especially the League, regarding what it meant. Ash got an understanding look, she came here, didn't she? Cooper looked confused, who's she? Ash giggled, Lady Moltres, of course. She came here, we met her and Lord Entei, remember? Cooper laughed sheepishly, oh. Right. We did. Gary laughed, let me guess, most people think Lady Moltres is actually a lord. Cooper chuckled, yes, they do. So you can imagine the shock when the boss found out she was here, gifting you guys with a feather. Man, I'm never forgetting it. The League decided to send the new champion to see if he could get Moltres to return and bless them with her eternal fire again. Gary looked excited, you mean, Lance the Dragon Champion, right? Ash's eyes twinkled, do you think we can meet his dragons? Cooper grinned mischievously, kids, I'm pretty sure his dragons would love to meet you. Ash said, Cooper. We are planning on having a barbecue at the beach in the evening with Axel, Lisa, and Luke after Lisa's battle with the gym leader. Will you be free today? I mean, things here look busy. Cooper ruffled Ash's hair, sure I will, I just need to push my break time to the evening, and I'm joining you at the beach. Gary exclaimed, "Awesome. We'll meet you at the beach then." The group of 3 people and their Pokémon finished their food before heading toward the lab area. Pikachu and Eevee ran ahead to greet their friends in the lab. The fire types welcomed them happily before noticing Ash and Gary, offering their greetings as well. Cooper left the 2 with the Pokémon after asking Hitmontop and Houndoom to watch over them. The fighter Pokémon decided to join the meditation session that Ash and Gary had started alongside the wild Magmar that had returned. Houndoom, on the other hand, chose a spot to sit and relax while keeping an eye on the younger cubs. Gary awoke in a place that felt both familiar and new. He looked around and saw a large ball of light in front of him, connected to his hand by a small ribbon-like thread. It felt warm and safe, but before he could explore further, he woke up from his meditative state next to Ash. On his lap was Eevee, looking at him with a worried expression. Even the wild Magmar seemed concerned. Ash was by his side, asking, "Gary, are you okay? You were in a trance and didn't hear us for half an hour." Gary smiled reassuringly. "I'm okay, Ash, I promise. When I was meditating, I felt like I woke up in a safe place that felt like home. There was this large ball of light connected to me. It was amazing." Ash looked thoughtful. "Gary, I think you found your core." Gary brightened. "You think so? That would be really cool." Ash nodded. "Yes, now the next step is to get used to its presence and try to cultivate it." Gary smirked. "I don't think I'll have a problem getting used to its presence, but how do I cultivate it?" Ash pondered for a moment. "Meditating usually helps, and you could try entering it too. Then connect with it more deeply. It'll change with you, reflecting how much you grow and your experiences. Our inner core is us in our rawest form." Curious, Gary asked, "What does yours look like?" Ash blinked. "Mine? It's a vast, unending grassland. At first, there was just one stream flowing through it with plants growing along its banks. Now there are 2 streams and more plants." Gary smiled. "That sounds really peaceful, Ash." Ash smiled back. "It is. Sometimes, if I really love a plant out there, I end up having a copy of it in there too." Gary exclaimed, "Really? Ah. You said our inner core represents us. I wonder what mine would look like. I can't wait to find out." Ash grinned. "Whatever it is, I'm pretty sure it'll be you in every way, Gary." Gary smiled before leaning in to kiss Ash's cheek. "Thank you, Ash. Truly, you are the best." Ash's cheeks turned pink. No problem, Gary. I'm happy to help." Magmar watched the 2 as they got up and joined the younger fire types, playing and training with them to their delight. He sat down next to the fighting Pokémon, observing their playful antics. He noticed the 2 were wearing the gifts bestowed upon them by his lord and lady, which were meant for their protection. In a flashback, Entei addressed Magmar. "My old friend, we need a favor from you." Magmar turned to the 2 fire lords. "How may I help, my lord and lady?" Moltres continued, "We have been observing the human children after they left." Entei added, "Could you ensure they always carry the gifts we gave them?" Magmar looked at them curiously. "May I ask why?" Moltres clicked her beak. "Their powers are growing at an impressive rate. It is not alarming, but should the wrong person notice, I fear for their lives." Magmar frowned. "But who would dare harm a cub? That is very dishonorable." Entei replied, "Indeed, but unfortunately, many humans would hurt them for their own selfishness, without regard for honor." Magmar's eyes hardened. "I see. Very well. I shall make sure of it and watch for any questionable beings around them." After the meeting, he had come down from the mountain early in the morning, searched for his sibling, and informed him of what he had learned from the lord and lady. His sibling was furious, having grown fond of the 2 human cubs, especially after they had made a group of young Vulpixes, who had lost their mother, smile and laugh. His sibling sought out the only psychic Pokemon in the lab to relay the information to his human partner. The human's surprised expression was amusing, but it had worked. They tightened security around the lab, and his human had thanked him. The two Magmars never expected to see the day when a human would thank a wild Magmar. Most of the time, wild Pokemon were treated as if they were foolish, and Magmars, in particular, were seen as dangerous creatures that would attack without provocation, which felt a bit insulting. He had better things to do than attack young trainers with more brawn than brains. Ash and Gary were running around the field with the young fire-type Pokemon. Gary noticed that while the young Charmander liked sticking close to Ash, Litten stayed close to him. It seemed the fire types had their favorites. After their fifth lap around the field, they stopped, breathing hard. Ash wiped his sweat. "All right then, time to check your attacks, guys. Make a line, and we'll start with the elemental attacks before moving to the physical ones." Gary called out, "Ready, everyone." "All right then, Eevee, use Shadow Ball. Litten, Vulpix, Chimchar, use Ember." Ash added, "Pikachu, use Thunderbolt. Charmander, Fennekin, Torchic, use Flamethrower." The attacks created a colorful display of yellow lightning, orange flames, and a black ball with reddish flames, resembling a beautiful painting that Gary couldn't help but capture in a photo. The other fire types either watched or relaxed nearby. After the Pokemon used their elemental moves one by one, Ash and Gary decided to try calling their own powers to the surface. Ash managed to create a fireball that was truly hot, while Gary conjured a ball filled with heat that resembled the move Heat Wave. Magmar nodded in approval, as if to say, "Well done." They would have continued if they hadn't been interrupted by a voice coming from the door. Standing by the door was a teen with red hair and a cape, accompanied by a Dragonite that looked at them curiously. Lance was taken aback and exclaimed, "What in Mew's name was that?" Blaine sighed from the doorway, "Right, how about I introduce you first? Kids, come here. I want you to meet someone." Ash and Gary walked over, followed by their Pokemon, who were pouting at the interruption. Blaine introduced them, "These are Ash Ketchum and Gary Oak, yes, he is Professor Oak's grandson. And yes, you just saw them replicating Pokemon moves, and yes, those are the Moltres Feather and Entei's Crystal I told you about. Kids, this is Lance Blackthorn, the new champion of the Kanto region as well as the reigning champion of the Johto region." Ash smiled, "Nice to meet you." Gary grinned, "Yeah. We were told you would be coming, but not this early." Lance snapped out of his thoughts when Dragonite nudged him, "I finished my champion duties, so I came as soon as I could." "It's not early, it's late afternoon." Ash looked at the time, "Ah. We missed lunch." Gary's stomach grumbled, "Well, now that you mention it." Magmar got their attention by pointing toward Trix's Macamp, which brought a basket for them. It seemed she realized they had not returned to the mess hall for lunch, so she sent some over. Gary and the Pokemon shouted, "Food!" He dragged Ash along with him, looking back at Lance and Blaine, "Do you want to join us?" Lance, whose curiosity had taken over, nodded, "I have so many questions, so yes, I would love to join you." Blaine nodded as well, "I have not eaten since breakfast, so yes." Ash and Gary enjoyed their simple lunch, which consisted of steamed rice, pork curry, sour and sweet pickles, and salad. The Pokemon were enjoying their own food around them while Lance quietly observed. He noticed how some of the younger Pokemon stayed close to the boys, avoiding him and Blaine. Blaine watched Lance's reaction to the kids and the Pokemon, knowing that as a champion, Lance was likely informed about the two boys registered in the league before they started training. Blaine placed his food down and smirked, "You know you can ask, champion. I won't guarantee we have all the answers, but we'll try to explain what we can." Lance turned to Ash and Gary, who were looking at him, "Okay. First question. What are you guys exactly? Psychics? Aura Guardians? Healers? Whisperers?" Ash blinked, "I'm not any of those. I guess I can do a bit of everything, but I'm not sure where I fall. Gary shrugged, I just activated my ability yesterday. I honestly have no idea which category I fall under either. Lance blinked, ah. That's a little troublesome, isn't it? How do you train then? I know that each group has its own methods and training routines. Blaine spoke up, it's a bit of a hit and run right now. A trial and error method, you could say. The kids see what they can do and practice it until they can perform it without problems. Lance frowned, this was not written in their files. Blaine hummed, there was nothing to write. Until we figure out what they can do, that part will remain blank. Gary perked up, there is a file on us in the league. Huh, I did not think they would make one already. Isn't it too early? Blaine smirked, your dear grandfather has been very adamant about keeping you safe, kiddo. Gary nodded, yeah. He has always been the overprotective type despite his goofy act. Ash observed Lance, why do you feel muted? Lance looked confused, muted? What do you mean? Gary stared hard at Lance as well, Ash is right, your core does feel muted, kind of like. I don't know, it has been locked up or something like that. Dragonite became alarmed and turned to Pikachu, asking what he noticed. Pikachu nodded and went to Ash, relaying Dragonite's concern. Ash blinked, ah. I'm not sure myself, it's really hazy. The core I'm feeling from him. Blaine added, am I right in saying everyone has a core? Gary nodded, yes, you are. The difference is whether the core is active or dormant. Lance here has an active core from what we can tell, but something is. Well, hiding? No, that's not the right word. Ash's eyes glowed an orangish color, held down. Your active core has been locked up and held down by something or maybe someone. Gary nodded, what he said. It's a bit weird feeling it. It looks like there are so many chains around it. It's so creepy. Blaine frowned, well, I certainly did not expect to learn about this today. I must say, from your expression, you did not know about this, did you, Lance? Lance had an unreadable expression after the previously confused one, no, I did not. I didn't even realize I would have a core like the psychics or aura users. It's a bit baffling to learn about. Dragonite asked again if Ash could help him. Pikachu looked at Dragonite, who referred to Ash as, blessed child, before translating. Ash looked at Dragonite, I can't promise anything, but I will try to help him. What do you mean by, blessed child? Gary looked confused, what now? Ash shrugged, not sure. How about we figure this out first? Gary looked at Lance, yeah, I do wonder who would have chained him though. And why? Lance sighed, well, truth be told, my family does have a fair number of enemies. It could be any one of them. Gary hummed, tapping his fingers, maybe whoever did it must have feared how powerful you would become. Lance held his head high, it will take more than chains to hold me down. Ash smiled, that's a very positive attitude, Lance. And Gary is right, whoever did it either feared you or hated you. Our cores, minds, and bodies are connected, it is a part of our souls. You literally have a part of your soul locked away by someone. The fact you are not in a coma right now just shows how strong you really are. Dragonite, despite his worry, could not help but feel proud of what Ash said about his chosen trainer. The young Charmander, who had been sitting near Ash, walked up to him and patted his knee in comfort. Dragonite purred in response, thanking him and nuzzling the baby fire type. Blaine was contemplative, noting the interesting turn of events. The League had sent Lance to be observed, but instead, they had discovered more about Lance's condition, something no one had realized existed. It seemed they had an unknown enemy to worry about. Blaine set his cup of coffee down. So how do you plan to help our dear champion? He didn't even know there was a problem. Ash thought for a moment. Right now, I was thinking of checking the chains on his core. Once we have a better idea of what's happening, we can decide how to help him. Of course, this is only if he is comfortable with us checking his core. We understand this is a big thing to ask. Lance replied, as Blaine pointed out, no one realized there was a problem before you, so yes, I don't mind if you check on my core. Even if nothing can be done now, I would appreciate knowing what is happening with me. Ash nodded. Alright then. Let's go see what we can find after lunch. After finishing their lunch, the group headed to the lab. Cooper was a bit surprised to see Ash and Gary there at this time of day, but after they explained the situation, he offered them one of the unused rooms. He was curious but did not pry. Instead, he checked Lance's physical condition and confirmed he was as healthy as any other teen. Ash and Gary motioned for Lance to sit in a meditative pose and asked him to hold one hand each. Ash closed his eyes and entered his core, guided by his knowledge of how to notice and enter other cores without causing harm. Following the presence of Gary's familiar core, Ash found himself causing Gary to look surprised. I didn't know you could enter my core. Can I enter yours? Ash giggled. I'll teach you how, don't worry. But I must warn you, it takes time to actually be able to do it. This is my first success. Gary asked, oh. How many tries and with whom? Ash shrugged. I stopped counting after the 31st try. Not to mention, it's exhausting and can be dangerous if we aren't careful. Uncle Luke volunteered for it, and sometimes death as well. Gary blinked. Ah. Well, I'll learn it no matter how many times I have to practice. I just noticed you are glowing like a rainbow, Ash. Ash laughed. You are very bright yourself, Gary. A really bright mix of black, silver, purple, green, and golden brown. Gary smiled. Do you like it? Ash blushed slightly. It suits you a lot. It's definitely you. Gary grinned, grabbing his hand. Let's go find Lance and help him. I wonder what he looks like. Ash took the lead. Come on, I will guide you, step by step. Let's start with the warnings. First, never force yourself inside, you only end up exhausting yourself. Second, be aware of your own limits. If you push yourself too hard, you might end up in a coma. Third, it is easier to enter other cores if you are invited voluntarily. Gary was contemplative. I get the first two. Sounds painful if forced. And the last one when I agreed to help, does that count as permission? Ash replied, looks like it, or I wouldn't be able to enter here. Fourth, remember who you are when you enter another core. If you forget, it will cause problems connecting with your own core. Gary grimaced. That sounds really problematic. Ash nodded. Lastly, if you get head pains, break off the connection immediately. You don't want to end up forgetting something important. Gary said, the warnings are easy to remember. What are the steps? Ash was about to answer when they reached the third core. Let's do this first. I'll tell you after we are out. The two of them looked at the core in front of them, pulsing with raw, untamed power. It felt angry, as if it was being held back and cut off from the rest of the soul. They noticed the large chains that shackled the core and searched for Lance, finding him sleeping on the other side. Ash ran over to him. Over there. Gary looked around the chaotic landscape. Man, this place is a mess. Lance, wake up. Ash shook Lance, but there was no response. No good. Maybe if we... Ah. I have an idea. Gary looked at Ash, who was focused on one of the smaller chains. What idea, Ash? Ash grabbed the anchor of the chain. This one is the smallest, and look at the symbol. Gary examined the symbol of the moon and stars. Isn't that the symbol of sleep? Do you think he'll wake up if we break it? Ash looked uncertain. I don't know, but we have to try. Ash thought, Death, guide me, please. Death responded, fear not, dear one. You are on the right path. Ash looked at the chain. Let's break it, we came here to free him after all. Gary nodded. Okay. But how? Ash took a deep breath. Focus your powers to combine with mine, Gary. We are going to make a key that will open the lock this chain has made. Do you get it? Gary brightened. Like a master key. Ash nodded. Ready? Gary replied, always. The two of them combined their powers and created a ball of energy. Ash manipulated it, sending it through the entire length of the chain before making it enter a lock. There was a click, and the chain that had been wrapped around the core fell away, disappearing from existence. Breathing hard, Ash and Gary looked at the rest of the chains, feeling strain from the amount of power they had used. Ash felt a bit sick. We need to go, we can't stay here anymore. We pushed too hard. Gary panted. Yeah. I feel woozy. Let's get out of here. As they left, Gary noticed that Lance was no longer asleep and was gazing at the core, which was now shining brighter in wonder. They had succeeded, at least a little, but there were still more chains to worry about. When they woke up, they saw the worried expressions of Cooper and Blaine, along with Pikachu and Eevee, who were also looking concerned. One glance at Lance revealed a noticeable change. He appeared brighter and less burdened. Ash rubbed his head to ease the migraine he was feeling, supported by Pikachu and Charmander who had entered the room after he hadn't returned to play with them. Gary was being comforted by Eevee and Litten, who liked his cheek gently. Gary opened his eyes and smiled reassuringly at his Pokémon before looking at Lance, who still had his eyes closed. Lance seemed more relaxed than before. Ash got up and tapped Lance on the shoulder, then sat back to wait for him to wake up. When Lance opened his eyes, he croaked, "So that's what a core looks like." Ash smiled a bit sadly, "Not exactly, no. A core is not locked up like that. It's more open and deep. It is us, at our rawest form." Gary nodded, "Yeah, I don't know who put those things on you, but whoever it was, they are powerful." Dragonite nudged his trainer, "Are you okay, Lance?" Lance's eyes widened, "I'm alright, old friend. I apologize for worrying you." Dragonite shook his head, "It was not your fault. I'm just happy you are okay, Lance." Lance's eyes softened, "Thank you, my friend, truly." Dragonite's eyes widened when he realized his trainer could understand him. "You understood what I said. You truly understood. I'm so happy. We can finally be bonded properly, like the stories of old said we would." Ash observed the two. "Dragonite looks really happy." Gary nodded, "He must have been very worried about you, Lance." Lance smiled softly, "He was worried, but he is more happy that I can understand him. I mean actually understand what he is saying." Ash brightened, "Awesome. This shows that breaking the weakest chain was completely worth it." Blaine looked at Ash, "You guys broke one of the chains." Gary nodded, "It was hard, but breaking it helped Lance connect with the core. His inner self was asleep near his core, but when we broke the chain, he woke up and connected with it. It's a small connection right now, but I'm sure we can get rid of the rest of the chains soon." Lance blinked, "That's. You will have to give me a detailed description of what happened in there." Ash made himself comfortable while Pikachu and Charmander settled on his lap. He started to explain his part of how he connected to Gary first. Gary, sitting with Eevee and Litten on both sides, shared how he met Ash and what they talked about while searching for Lance's core. Lance and Blaine listened, fascinated by the rules Ash had told Gary about entering cores. Ash then recounted everything that happened inside his core, how they tried to wake him up but failed, and finally decided to break the weakest chain present. They concluded with their return to the real world, but not before Gary saw Lance inside the core had woken up. Blaine remarked, "You kids had quite an adventure. Are you sure you are all right?" Lance replied, "So we can connect with other cores. I'm actually happy that it is difficult to connect with others, though." Ash added, "We are fine, Blaine, promise. Also, we are taking a break for today. I don't want to push my luck." Gary nodded in agreement, "I can't imagine my core being locked away like that." Blaine hummed thoughtfully, perhaps a break is a good idea. I have to inform your grandfather about this new ability of yours, though. I promised him after all. Lance stated, and I need to get back to my actual mission, which is to win Molter's favor and bring the flame back to the League. Blaine looked at Lance, is this your first mission as a Kanto champion? Lance nodded, you said Molter's was here on the island. Blaine confirmed, she came here to gift them. Yes, Molter's is a lady. Lance nodded and decided to get to work, leaving but promising to say goodbye when his task was done. Ash and Gary waved and wished him good luck in winning the Fire Lady's favor back. Meanwhile, a wild Magmar watched everything from a distance. The wild Magmar mused, the young warrior might have a chance to win back Milady's favor. Another Magmar replied, perhaps. She has been worried about the line the Kanto dragons had chosen to represent them. The wild Magmar continued, there might still be hope, and from what I can see, he will become strong. Perhaps we will have the dragon aura users among us again. The other Magmar asked, indeed, will you be joining the children at the beach? The wild Magmar responded, I gave my word to my lord and my lady to watch over them as long as they are on this island. As the two Magmars conversed, Ash and Gary prepared for the barbecue. It was late afternoon, but still early in the evening. Cooper soon joined them after finishing his work and offered to help them get the barbecue items from storage. It was old but still usable after a good cleaning. Cooper led Ash and Gary to a more private area on the beach, this time joined by Charmander and Litten, who insisted on coming along. After getting permission from Blaine, they set off. Blaine watched them with a contemplative expression, concerned about the dynamics with the beginner fire-type Pokémon. Cooper stopped at a spot on the beach, here we are. I'll set up the barbecue grill and table. Ash nodded, I'll barbecue the fish and the lobsters. Gary chimed in, I'll do the oysters, clams, and mussels. I read a really good recipe before coming here. Cooper blinked in surprise, you two can barbecue. Ash grinned, our older brothers taught us how to. Gary added, it was difficult at first, but we got the hang of it. Cooper remarked, big brothers are already teaching you how to survive in the wild, huh? Ash laughed, recalling how his brothers had decided to show off their skills while babysitting him. Cooper chuckled, saying that Ash's brothers sounded like a lot of fun. Ash giggled in agreement as he took over prepping the fish and lobsters for the grill, while Gary prepared the oysters and clams. The delicious smell wafting from the grills made Cooper's mouth water, and he suddenly imagined himself chasing away many boys and girls from Ash's brothers in the future. He shook off the thought and started making drinks non-alcoholic for the kids and alcoholic for the adults. As they prepped the food, they heard some Pokémon cries approaching. Axel's Scyther, Luke's Venomoth, and Lisa's Raichu came toward them, followed by their trainers and other Pokémon. Ash greeted them happily, welcoming everyone to the beach barbecue. Gary introduced them, mentioning that they had been hanging out whenever they could. Cooper nodded, recognizing them from before and complimenting Lisa on her impressive battle that day. Lisa smirked, surprised that Cooper knew Ash and Gary. Cooper grinned, joking that he was their babysitter for the day. Luke laughed, appreciating that someone was looking out for them. Axel pointed out a Magmar nearby, and Cooper explained that it was there to keep the kids safe. Axel remarked on learning something new every day, while Luke suggested that maybe it was just that Ash and Gary inspired a protective instinct. Lisa offered to help with the barbecue, and Gary asked her to prepare the hot dog and hamburger buns in a brown paper bag. She agreed and asked how they wanted their bread. Ash wanted his grilled with butter, while Gary preferred his with butter and garlic. Luke volunteered to help, and Axel said he would get the food ready for the Pokémon. Ash thanked them, and Gary expressed his appreciation. The group worked together to prepare the barbecue dinner, sharing laughs and a few accidental spills along the way. Lisa recounted her battle for a badge, describing how her Wartortle evolved into a Blastoise just in time to secure her victory against Blaine. Gary's eyes sparkled with admiration for the fully evolved Pokémon, making Blastoise feel proud. As they enjoyed their meal, Ash asked where everyone planned to go next. Axel mentioned he was challenging Koga in Fuchsia City, while Luke planned to challenge Giovanni in Viridian City. Lisa shared her goal of challenging Sabrina in Saffron City. Cooper whistled in admiration, impressed that they were taking on the main gyms. He explained that Kanto had many gyms, but only 8 were considered main gyms, which were powerful and essential for qualifying for the league. Luke elaborated that these main gyms also protected their respective cities and towns from danger. Ash was surprised to learn this, and Lisa noted that such information was taught in Poke School to prepare for a license. The group continued discussing league rules and the various routes they could take during their journeys in Kanto. Luke shared his experiences battling Sabrina and Koga, warning them about the cleverness of Sabrina's Abra and the tricky poison types used by Koga. As the barbecue came to an end, it was time for the 3 trainers to depart. Ash, Gary, and Cooper waved them farewell from the docks before returning to the lab. Magmar followed them until they were safely inside before heading home. Litten and Charmander, however, were reluctant to return to their Poke Ball, prompting Blaine to promise they could spend more time with the kids the next day. The 2 Pokémon cheered at the promise and returned to their Poke Ball without further fuss. Blaine thought about preparing 2 new trainers for disappointment. More than a week passed on the island, and Blaine had spoken with Samuel, who agreed to let Ash and his grandson stay another week. Blaine was curious about what else they could accomplish. Samuel was shocked to learn about Lance's condition but seemed relieved that his kids weren't the only ones with such abilities. Blaine reflected on the chaos caused by Team Rocket, who had tried to capture Lady Moltres. Fortunately, Lance had received Moltres' blessings and returned safely, despite Trix getting injured and Rex breaking his leg during the confrontation. Their Pokémon had rushed them to the emergency room upon their return. Trix lost a lot of blood but survived the encounter while Rex and Lance were giving a report on what happened. Lance recounted his journey up the mountain, explaining that the first 2 days were uneventful. However, on the 3rd day, his Pokémon, Dratini, returned with information about suspicious individuals in the area. Blaine, intrigued, asked if Lance could understand Dratini, to which Lance confirmed that he could, albeit only with Dragon-type Pokémon. Blaine expressed his amazement and inquired about any other abilities Lance might have discovered. Unfortunately, Lance had not found any others yet. Continuing with his report, Lance detailed how he had followed Dratini and spied on a group of Team Rocket operatives led by the notorious Stuart Pop. After realizing there were 12 operatives on the island, he called for backup. Rex and Trix joined him as they strategized their approach. They planned to attack under the cover of night, but their plans changed when Team Rocket found and began capturing Moltres. Lance placed the lantern holding Moltres' flame on the table, explaining that they had to adjust their plan and act quickly to rescue her from the ship. He described the chaos of the situation, noting how difficult it was to avoid Moltres' flames while also dealing with the operatives. Remarkably, during the fight, he managed to win Moltres' favor, fulfilling one of his mission objectives. Blaine thanked Lance and mentioned that there were 2 people waiting for him. Lance smiled, expressing his intention to meet them after cleaning up and healing, not wanting them to see him in such a state. Once in his assigned room, Lance sighed, reflecting on how the mission had taken 5 days. Exhausted both physically and mentally, he had barely slept. After a long shower to wash away the dirt and fatigue, he sought out his Pokémon in the healing ward. They had been resting, and the next day, Lance sat in a private room trying to reach his core. It was more challenging than he anticipated, leaving him pale and gasping for air. His Pokémon sensed his struggle. Dragonite reassured him, while Dratini and Flygon expressed concern for his well-being. Lance smiled at them, acknowledging his exhaustion but reminding them that their mission was not over yet, they still needed to deliver the flames to the League. Altaria encouraged him to rest more. Nurse Joy entered, surprised by the bond Lance shared with his Pokémon, noting that Dragonite and Dratini were recovering well, but Flygon needed to stay overnight due to an injury. Despite Flygon's protests, Nurse Joy insisted on caution, also advising that Altaria should remain for the night due to her broken wing. She then informed Lance that he had visitors. Lance's Pokemon perked up at the mention of the visitors, and when he went to greet them, he found Ash and Gary looking worried. They expressed their concern after hearing about the recent events. Lance led them to the private room where his Pokemon were resting. Ash confirmed that the Pokemon had informed them about the situation and thanked Lance for dealing with the threat. Gary added that one of the fire types had sent a stone as a token of appreciation. Ash presented the stone to Lance, explaining that it was a Mega Evolution stone intended for Altaria, who had protected baby fire types during the battle. Lance accepted the gift, acknowledging its rarity. Curious, Gary asked about the stones, and Lance shared that they were indeed hard to find. Ash mentioned that they had encountered another Mega Evolution stone earlier, which had belonged to a Magmortar. Lance remarked on the adventure Ash and Gary had, but Gary pointed out that it was not as dangerous as Lance's experience. As they chatted, Lance inquired about what the Pokemon had told them. Ash shared that they learned about the battles Lance had fought and how he had been injured but was alive. Gary noted that they had been warned by Professor Oak about Team Rocket, highlighting the importance of discretion regarding their knowledge of these events. The organizations around the world and their potential reactions if they discovered their secret were a topic of concern. Lance acknowledged the gravity of the situation, mentioning that Professor Oak was one of the best and a former champion. Ash reassured him, promising that they were careful and that aside from their family and Blaine and his team, Lance was the only one who knew about their abilities. Gary inquired about Lance's well-being since it had only been a few days since he connected to his core. Lance expressed that he felt much better, able to communicate with his partners in battle more easily, and he noticed improvements in his reflexes. Ash was pleased to hear this and asked if Lance had meditated yet. Lance admitted he hadn't had much time but planned to meditate that night, feeling stronger after his last battle and believing he had managed to break free from at least one more chain. Gary speculated that since Lance was actively using his core, he might be burning away his chains. Ash added that they should hope whoever had chained him wouldn't notice. Dragonite growled protectively, asserting that anyone who tried would have to get through him first. Lance affectionately rubbed his oldest partner, reassuring him that they would face any challenges together. Gary's eyes sparkled with excitement, noting that Lance could now communicate with his Pokemon. Ash clapped in agreement, highlighting that the Pokemon could seek help from Lance as well. Lance chuckled, explaining that he could only understand those with dragon typing, specifically his team, while other types were more challenging for him. Ash related to this, sharing his own experiences with understanding new Pokemon. Gary chimed in, emphasizing that spending time with new Pokemon made it easier to understand them, even if it required patience. As the evening progressed, the three friends enjoyed each other's company, eventually deciding to go out for dinner at a newly opened restaurant. Gary insisted on this outing, knowing that Lance might have to leave early the next day. Dragonite and Dratini found amusement in Lance's surprised expression. The dinner was filled with laughter, with Ash and Gary playfully acting like protective younger brothers to keep away any overly enthusiastic fans. Lance found their antics amusing, even if he maintained a neutral expression. After dinner, Lance decided to walk Ash and Gary back, as it was getting late. Before entering the center, Gary declared that Lance was now one of them. Ash hugged Lance, offering support if he ever wanted to talk about cores. Lance appreciated their friendship, knowing where to find Professor Oak if needed. Dragonite and Dratini expressed their wishes for future battles, while Pikachu and Eevee agreed. Once inside, Ash and Gary were greeted by Cooper, Charmander, and Litten, who had been waiting for them. The two fire types jumped on them excitedly, and Cooper welcomed them back with a smile, though he wondered how the two young Pokemon would cope when the boys left at the end of the week. As time passed on the island, Ash and Gary enjoyed learning and practicing their new abilities. Ash successfully learned to perform a fireball, while Gary mastered Heatwave, which, although not as powerful as a Pokemon's attack, was strong enough to distract or harm humans. Blaine was intrigued by their progress and helped Lance figure out his abilities, using Ash and Gary as examples. Blaine mused about Lance's newfound power after his core was released, realizing that someone had wanted him out of the picture. Ash and Gary spent a lot of time talking with Lance, and although Blaine was curious about their conversations, he respected their privacy. He had recently spoken with Samuel and wondered how things would unfold for the boys once they returned home, especially with the League now focused on them. In a flashback, Blaine expressed concern about the attachment the two starter Pokémon had developed for Ash and Gary. Samuel acknowledged the dilemma and questioned whether they should allow the Pokémon to return home with the boys, considering the trainers they were originally meant for. Blaine pointed out that trainers often had no say in which Pokémon they received, as it was largely a matter of chance. Samuel laughed nervously, realizing he would need to make adjustments for new members. He hadn't anticipated that the boys would acquire their second Pokémon, especially the official Kanto and Alola starters. Blaine suggested that Samuel could use this situation to prove his theory about the bonds between Pokémon and humans, knowing that many skeptics remained resistant to change despite the evident results. And that's coming from an old man like me. Samuel looked thoughtful. You know what, Blaine? That might not be a bad idea. It could be an ongoing research project. I'll need to think about this properly, though. Ash and Gary are different from other kids. I will have to get more volunteers to avoid any suspicions. Blaine watched, amused, as his friend rambled about ideas again. Samuel, how about I leave you to it? I'll be here if you need anything. Ah. Of course. Thank you for watching over my kids, Blaine. I'll be there to pick them up a few days from now. Now the kids were packing their things with the help of Cooper, Rex, and Trix, and none of them realized how many items they had collected until that moment. There were bottles of fur and scales that Pokémon would shed annually, as well as bottles of plants that they had discovered grew in the wild area of Cinnabar Island, like the fire snapdragon that fire types love to eat. Blaine would need to prepare a search and cultivate group to grow them in one of the many fields. They also had 12 different stones, ranging from clear crystals to lava gems to fire, sun, and rock evolution stones, except for the Mega Evolution Stone, which they decided to send to Professor Sycamore for his specific studies. Cooper had Trix and Rex help list the items they had collected. Oh Mew, kids. Just 2 weeks, almost half a month, and you have quite a collection here, Trix exclaimed. Ash laughed, a bit embarrassed. Yeah, we got a little carried away. I mean, these things only grow here on the island. Pikachu rubbed his head, expressing his surprise. Rex ruffled his hair and reassured them, no worries, kids. This isn't so bad. Trix grinned. Yeah, we now know some of the plants that our Pokémon enjoy can be found locally. It will save our budget quite a bit. Really? Gary asked. Eevee chimed in, confirming their findings. Cooper laughed. Yeah. Blaine may not say it, but he's actually quite happy with your reports on the types of plants, stones, and Pokémon found in certain areas on the island. We're mostly busy with security, trainers challenging the gym, and researching fire types, so we aren't exactly free to catalog the local fauna and flora properly. Having someone do it in detail saves us quite a headache. Gary blinked, surprised. Ah. We didn't realize that. Next time, we'll work harder on the reports. Ash nodded. Yeah, we know that most of our report was probably childish to read. We saw Blaine trying not to laugh at it. Trix giggled. Well, your handwriting does need a lot of work. Rex snorted. I don't know. I think it was cute. Ash and Gary pouted, making Cooper chuckle. Don't worry, with practice, you'll make better reports. The 5 of them packed the last of the items into boxes before sending them in a van to be loaded onto the ship. They spent the evening packing their clothes, leaving the collected items to be packed in the morning. They spent the whole morning sending bags and boxes to be loaded, and it was almost noon when they were about to leave. Suddenly, both Gary and Ash were jumped by Charmander and Litten. Pikachu asked, Hey, what are you guys doing?